if you look at the Gladiators team composition, it's hyper aggressive. They're playing with an Echo Tracer. That means just all in dive all the time. And so your general plan, your general play, let me see if I can remember how to, is it Control Shift? If you take a look at the Gladiators team composition, right, they're playing a hyper aggro style. So what they're going to have is, it simplifies things for Space quite a lot because he's mostly just going to be going forwards. And the Gladiators need to put their backline in aggressive positions to be able to get LOS. So the Gladiators backline is just left to kind of fend for themselves. And then you have the front line of these 4 players that are going to be going on like hyper aggressive dives. That's generally how this team comp is going to play. Muse is going to try and sync up with the engages from Kevster, Mirror. It's about getting your DPS in good positions and going really aggro. And then Space is supposed to be going aggressive as well. When you look at things on the other side, the front line is essentially... This is a slower team composition from the Shock, right? So Gladiators are the proactive team and Shock are the reactive team in pretty much every single team fight they take. Even when ANS moves over to McCree, it's even more obvious. But even here on the Sombra, he's going to be trying to counter what the Gladiators are doing. And he can go aggressive with hack setups, but it's just by definition going to be slower because you have to rely on that setup. So most of the time what you're going to see is Smurf and Glister are going to go on counter dives while the backline tries to stay alive. And that puts a lot of pressure on Choyobin because he has to preempt to the Gladiators before they actually strike. So I want to take a look here. What occurs in these team fights. So the first thing to notice is from ANS's POV, being able to play the Sombra here ends up working really nicely for them. ANS's Sombra, by the way, is good, and it's one of the reasons why I really rate the guy, because he's not just this hit scan god, he's actually been able to pick up other characters for them. Okay, with not like huge amounts of playtime, but he was benching Rascal on the May and on the Sombra and stuff towards the end of the season last year. So the guy's got quality when it comes to roles like this. So take a look at what ANS does here. He teleports up to the high ground, and him and Choyobin pressure down Mirror with a hack, and then Glister finishes off Mirror. So this is a huge first pick to be able to find with the Shock playing defensively there, just punishing Mirror with his, positioning in the sky. Glister goes, chases it down. They manage to find the kill. So that's essentially the first team fight, one for the Shock, right? So how do they end up getting back into this? So now I want to take a look at Shu. Because the Shock's positioning here is really poor, honestly. They don't have control of this area of the map, and so they can't stop the Gladiators from pathing through. This Gladiators backline just has all the space in the world because the Shock are all bunched up here. And look at this Bionade and how much value it gets. Just straight in there, yeeted in, lands onto Twilight and Choyobin, and they just munch this backline. Look how little space Violet and Twilight have to work with here because they had to path towards the point, or they felt like they had to path towards the point. And even though Violet does his best job, and Choyobin as well, of trying to defend Twilight, there's just no chance here. And it also just gives Skewed all the room he needs to charge forwards on this battle brig and just roll them over. So, good initiation. The next thing to look at here is as Twilight paths back from spawn, the Gladiators go really aggressively onto him. So, we're going to see in this next team fight, Twilight is going to be coming back over the top. The way that the Shock's backline normally paths is up at the top round here, right? So Twilight is going to rotate like this, come in and try and heal the rest of his team from this kind of position as they play on the point. Or he can drop at that position and then try and play from here and path towards the point. When you notice Shu, most of the time he's coming around to get long sight lines on his team here or to come out here as well. So slightly different pathing from both of the Ana players. But Twilight gets minced here. Twilight and Violet come forwards. They are the furthest forward players from the whole of the Shock. Their tanks are still coming off the respawn. And they just don't understand that Gladiators are going to roll them here. They absolutely beast them. I mean, look at the info that's gained. Like, Mirror sees this early, realizes that Twilight and Violet are too far forwards, and they get dominated by this dive. Just Muse jumping on them and Mirror taking the nano boost. And that's not... It's Twilight positioning himself poorly, but Violet as well was there. So overall, the team just doesn't understand how aggressive the Gladiators are going to be. The Gladiators' pace and proactivity completely taking them by surprise, and Kevster flanking around the back to be able to get a kill on Violet as well. But really, the damage is already done as soon as Twilight goes. So that's a a huge team fight win that shows you how proactive and aggressive the Gladiators are being. Now, this team fight, you've got an EMP. You're going to be able to clean them up. Again, the Gladiators try to initiate, but it's a defensive EMP. Big Bionade as well, catches onto Shu and Skewed. And the San Francisco Shock are going to be able to hold on. But, I mean, you can't just bank on the EMP always being available, right? Because it's not like ANS got all the time in the world to be able to mop things up. But if we scroll things forwards, I want to now pay a little bit of attention to the counter dive I was talking about earlier from Glister and Smurf. So, if we start winding things back down to normal here, as the Gladiators come in, the plan from the Shock is to go for these counter dives with Smurf and with Glister. And if you look at Glister's POV in the middle of this fight, actually, you see that he's trying to keep an eye on where Kevster is. They get a big Bionade to the back line, and Smurf and Glister have gone in aggressively at the same time as the Gladiators have gone aggressive here. So there's been Bionades onto both of the backlines, so Violet and Twilight are Bionaded, and Skew and Shoot. But whereas Space is playing aggressively, you've got Choyobin playing defensively, right? So the Shock are trying to play this peel-oriented style, whereas Space is trying to go aggressive. He ends up changing his priority target, I think, onto the backline at some point. But the thing I want to focus on here is the concept of this like counter dive that's coming out from the Shock. Because people were saying in this game that, oh, Striker diff, they can't win without Striker. I saw comments all over the place saying Glister was just noticeably not Striker on Tracer. Bro, watch the game with your eyeballs. Glister fucking popped. And remember that Glister does not have the help of his Diva and an Echo to be able to finish off these targets. This is him fighting only alone with Smurf. This is just Glister and Smurf going on counter dives. And they fucking shred. He manages to just get the tap in on Shu there. And I think in the rest of this team fight, he poos as well. If memory serves, anyway. So ANS and Twilight have died. Skew dies. He kills Kevster too. Because Choyobin is peeling and Space is going aggressive, Space ends up getting demeched. Choyobin much closer to his backline. And Glister is doing a ton in the midst of that fight. Like, doing a ton. I'm not saying that Striker isn't better than Glister. Striker is better than Glister on Tracer. But the difference is not big enough to be an impact. Glister's still fucking popping. He's popping, dude. So, here's what I want to show as well. So, the San Francisco Shock, their backline died, right? And so Twilight is again coming back to the team fight here. He's coming back in. The Gladiators, even though Space is demeched, have the presence of mind here to just eviscerate Twilight as he comes back in. And what I want to notice in this team fight is how slow Choyobin is to realize this threat. Violet realizes it pretty quickly, but something I noticed as being a theme throughout the Shock games that I watched in the replay viewer is that Choyobin is slow to react recently. And I think that that's mostly because he's not thinking faster than the Gladiators. The Gladiators here, with Kevster up top, if you watch from Kevster's eyes... Oh my god, what the fuck is this replay viewer bug? He spots Twilight. Look at that. He spots Twilight, got his beady little eyes on him, and I'm assuming this is Kevster that calls this dive. Mitch Stitch, thanks for the 15 months. Twilight is spotted, and this is the middle of a team fight, right? The Gladiators are trying to flip the objective, but they instantly changed their priority from fighting on the objective to going for a three-man dive here onto Twilight. It's Mirror, Kevster, and Muse. Space would probably join them if he had a mech as well, but they three-man dive onto Twilight immediately as soon as they're identifying an opportunity to get an advantage. And I'm going to play this in slow motion so it'll look even more dramatic, obviously, like the difference in pace from these teams. But just look at how quick this is. Kevster, he spots Twilight. Twilight moves forward into a position where he can't exactly retreat as easily. Kevster triple blinks forwards, and Muse and Mirror have instantly changed their plan from being fighting on the objective to diving onto Twilight. In the meantime, when you look at Choi, he has his boosters available. He just doesn't realize that the Gladiators are going to be this fast. And that's the thing. It's the pace. That's what's the most important thing to think about in the meta right now, at least in my opinion. It's less about compositions and more about pace. You heard it from the players as well when they said some teams are playing offensively and defensively. I like to think of it as proactively and reactively. The Gladiators are being proactive here. And in order for Choyobin to react, he has to understand what the threat is. And he just doesn't realize that this dive is going on. Choyobin is just kind of watching them for a while. Then Twilight's already dead. And then I think he activates his boosters at some point. No, maybe he doesn't even bother, actually. He's just contesting the objective still throughout all of this. And Twilight gets absolutely minced. Now, you could also say, well, what's the use in Choyobin even bothering? You know, he's fighting against Muse and Mirror's laser beam. It's not like he can peel that away anyway. But having a diva that's like harassing the Winston constantly and having that boop to be able to deny them, I think is so important. And so when you have these situations where the pace of the Gladiators is able to get past Choyobin's defenses, the Shock look like a different team. They just can't hold on in these environments. And yeah, this then becomes honestly quite an easily won fight for the rest of Glads. There's a nano boost applied to Mirror, and they're able to clean up. The counter dive was not there because Smurf was playing on the objective as well. And the Gladiators have got it by being really fast and decisive.
Hello. Hey there. Thank you. Boosters engaged.
The next team fight as well is very similar to the original one, with Shock just pathing all toward... not the original one, but the second team fight of the map. With Shock just all pathing to the point and getting destroyed. This is the team fight where they EMP again. So Shock have won all the team fights where they have EMP available, but they've pretty much lost the others. I guess they won one where Glister and Smurf had an insane counter dive, but until they have the EMP available, they're not being effective, being able to peel people off. But again, like I said before, look at the backline positioning here. Violet and Twilight are just stuck in this area, and because Shock don't control this side of the map, they're just allowing Gladiators control of this like plateau, this high ground area. And so Twilight and Violet just get stuck at the back the whole time. They're just stuck. They have no space to work with. It's a fantastic point juggling from the Gladiators to be able to get space on, and then I think Muse touches afterwards and he has a primal. Maybe Kevster comes in or something like that. But it's the Bionade that comes out from Shu that ends up turning it, I think. The Bionade onto Shu, and then also a primal just knocking Twilight around, and Twilight just gets minced. Actually, I don't think he was Bionaded there, but the backline just has no space to work in. They're such threats. The Gladiators have control of all of this area of the map, and Shock are playing too defensively. They're not proactively creating space for themselves. They're trying to reactively like counter dive, but they don't even counter dive that time. They just peel. There's no counter dive attempt. They're just trying to peel, and when you peel, you lose space. So your peel has to be fantastic. Which, by the way, so when we're talking about there being no counter dive here from the Shock, right, and them just losing all of their space, this is the most that Smurf does, is try and just get onto Shu here, but this isn't effective because it's not synced up with Glister. Look at the difference, right? The Gladiators have now actually lost Shu, and this is a similar position, right? The Gladiators don't have space on the objective, and the Shock could come back from this and do the exact same thing that the Gladiators just did. And so what I want to notice here is Mirror and Kevster, and how aggressive they are on defense. So here's Mirror. Kevster you can see over there at the back. The kill onto Glister obviously is good and useful for them. Glister kind of stuck in, wasn't able to retreat from the previous fight. But Mirror and Kevster don't try to peel. They don't try to defend. They don't try to stop the Shock tanks from getting to the objective. Instead, there's Kevster, there's Mirror, and as the rest of the Shock come forwards, they go aggressive and they beam down ANS. This is overtime, and they've left Skewed and Muse alone on the objective because they're valuing the pace at which they can go here, kill ants, and still get back and have that man advantage. That's really, really good proactivity from the Gladiators. Like, that is so much fast thinking. I don't know who's calling these engagements. Maybe it's Mirror. Maybe that's why they like him being in for these scenarios. But fuck me, they're really decisive and playing these situations extremely well. And then they're back in time to be able to deal with any kind of pressure onto Skewed. Skewed is quite happy to fend for himself. Now he's got the Brigand. So even there in the very first round, you can see massive differences between the style of the Gladiators and the Shock. How proactive the Gladiators have been, how aggressive their composition allows and requires them to be. And the Shock just can't defensively hold on. Also, Kevster's Tracer, now he's on low ping, is fucking monstrous. Like, Kevster was amazing in this series on Tracer. So was Glister, but yeah, Kevster was cracked. Okay, so let's go on to the next round. Because this next round is really good too. And this next round has ANS playing McCree. And a lot of people are saying, you know, oh, well, ANS needs some time to be able to get back to his former level, etc., etc. Watch what ANS was doing in this game, man. He was fucking pooing. Like, okay, maybe this wasn't the biggest highlight reel performance ever from him, but he's still putting on a show. It's just that the Shock's composition is defensive, and they were getting rolled over by the pace and the lack of space that they had. Because again, if you look at the comps, you've got the same kind of thing occurring. In fact, it's essentially identical, the team composition. You have Glister and Smurf are going to go for counter dives, and then you have an even tankier backline, because now ANS is added to this four-man backline where Choyobin is going to be peeling, ANS has the flash available, and Glister and Smurf are going to go in these counter dives. All this round, by the way, I'm not going to talk about it too much and show you from their perspective, but if you go in the replay viewer and you just watch the fucking magic that Smurf and Glister were doing on this round, they were fucking dominating. The counter dives were working really well for the Shock. It's just that their backline wasn't able to hold on. And that's unusual when you consider the quality of players that they have in the backline, but they weren't able to contend with the pace that the Gladiators were putting forward. They weren't positioning themselves preemptively into good areas where they could stop the Gladiators from going. So in this very first engagement, we're going to see exactly what I mean in terms of the like frontline backline mix. So a little bit of posturing from both of these teams, getting into good positions, and then gonna slow things down. Actually, I don't need to slow things down because I can pause them. Actually, no, we are going to slow things down a little bit. Backline, Shu, Skewed, completely alone. Space, diving, Muse, diving, Mirror, diving, Kevster, working his way around the back, diving. This is a full four-man dive from the Gladiators, designed to obliterate the Shock backline as they push into this exposed position, because now they have a small house at their back. Kevster's pinching them from behind. They've really worked this dive well. They're in a good position to be able to deliver on it, and the Shock are not in a place where they can effectively retreat anywhere, because Violet and Twilight, well, Twilight and ANS can retreat down here, but Violet can't really. I mean, in theory, he might be able to get over there in time, but I think they've caught him pretty nicely. Now, on the other side, for the Shock, take a look at what happens here. I'm going to slow it down. This is 25%. As these guys all go in, Glister and Smurf do not go to retreat and peel. Glister goes aggressive onto the backline, and Smurf goes in as well. And so you have these two completely different fights occurring in this meta right now, where you have the team that's defensive is also counter-diving. Smurf and Glister are very clearly here. Their goal is wipe out the Gladiators' backline and return to the team fight as quickly as possible to try and help the rest of your backline. And you hope that your backline can survive longer, because they're taking a 4v4 engagement here and a 2v2 engagement here. That's not always exactly how the numbers play out, but it's the most clear example of how it normally does. Now, the problem is that with the Gladiators attacking first, they beam Violet down first because they've just got everybody in position. Plus, there's way more damage going on here. They can burn people down so fast. Whereas Skewed and Shu, even if these guys are fantastic at being able to execute the counter dive, which they are, these people are just necessarily going to die a little slower. So you have a scenario too where ANS has fallen off and can't really help the rest of his team, because if he paths backwards with Violet, he's gonna die, and if he backs off, now he's separated from Violet and Twilight, who kind of pathed in a weird way, getting stuck in this room. And I'm not gonna blame Choyobin here at all, but the backline was caught completely. I'm not gonna say completely unaware. They must have known that a dive was coming, but they aren't able to defend it whatsoever. And so they end up just getting fucking bopped. ANS does manage to kill Mirror, and this fight ends up being won by ANS, who gets around the side, kills Mirror, and I think is able to kill Kevster, pressure Kevster away, something like that. And they just about hold on. Even with their backline dead, just the fact that ANS survived there was good enough, you know? So that's what the Shock are aiming to do in these team fights, right? But you can see how close it was. If ANS ends up dying, or someone's able to get out, like Muse is able to get out, and they can execute that again, it's on a knife's edge. The second fight is pretty much the exact same thing. And again, I want to watch this from ANS's perspective, because we know that Smurf and Glister are going to be counter diving, but this was where he got up his Deadeye pretty early on, and he's able to hold on with that. So ANS just goes to escort Twilight to the high ground. He's making sure that Kevster can't do too much, putting damage on him constantly, stopping him from getting into good positions, trying to break the shield a little bit. That puts more poke damage onto Muse, because that's one of the advantages of the Shock's comp, is that ANS has poke to be able to give Smurf that advantage in the Winston battle. As Space goes aggressive into the back, he gets a D-Mech, and then here's this weird Deadeye that I think this was very close. So Kevster and Muse are trying to burn ANS down before he can pop the Deadeye here. You'll see Kevster actually blink into ANS to try and finish him off and get the kill, but ANS gets the kill. They just managed to hold on. Even though ANS dies there, he draws enough attention, manages to kill Kevster, holds on for long enough. And Smurf and Glister, by the way, managed to get a really good counter dive where Glister pulse bombs Shu. So, again, Glister and ANS are fucking doing their job. They're doing their job. It's just... well, anyway, we'll discuss it as the fights get later. So now let's take a look at Kevster, because Kevster turns this next fight. We just saw a really good pulse bomb from Glister. Now watch a sick pulse bomb by Kevster. So, like I said, the Gladiators' advantages are that they are proactive, fast, and when you are the team to initiate, you take space away from the Shock. So here's a dive that comes in, and everybody from the Shock is going to be grouped up. I mean, apart from Glister and Smurf, obviously, who are going for these counter dives. I'm not going to mention that too much more. But this backline 4 for the Shock is very grouped up. They don't have good sight lines. They don't have good, like, space to be able to work with, honestly. And that plays to Kevster's advantage massively, because when these guys are all grouped up, it means that he can land sick pulse bombs, blinks behind them to again kind of herd them together. And these three players are on top of each other. They just have no space with which to deal with. Pulse bomb goes in, despite Choyobin's defense matrix being there. And it does giga damage. He only gets credit for 2, but that was really a 3-man pulse bomb. But Mirror's right there, and Muse is right there. The coordination is there, right, for the Gladiators to set Kevster up for those huge moments. And, of course, in the meantime, Shu and Skewed are getting counter-dived, this time with Space playing more defensively. But, yeah, fatty pulse. So here's something else I want to show you guys. So this time, the Gladiators, now that they've flipped the objective, they're going to set up for an aggressive dive. And they do this by getting skewed. So something that you'll also notice as we talk more about this VOD review is that when you play as the aggressors, you need information. You need to know specifically when the Shock's backline has gone out of this door, basically, because that's when they're vulnerable. If they're all the way in here, you can't really dive into them as easily. It's difficult. They have escape routes to the left, the right. They can drop off the bridge. But as soon as they cross this threshold, they are diveable. And you need someone to give you that information. On some of the maps, that ends up being space, but in this instance, it ends up being skewed, actually. And so, if you watch how skewed positions himself here, he gets really far forwards, holds his shield, and he's looking for information on these guys. He's looking for info on Violet and ANS and Twilight to see where they're positioned and to give the timing for the rest of his team to engage. You look at the rest of the players, they don't have vision. Mirror doesn't have vision. Kevster doesn't have vision. Muse, you could argue, has some level of vision here, but not enough to make a particularly decisive call just on his own. Space doesn't have vision. They're making these comms off Skewed's third person here. They don't quite get the timing right, because these guys are still, you know, in a defensive area. But you can at least see the cogs are turning. Like, there's the right attempts are being made to set up these dives to work. So I actually think that this might have been a bit of a bait play as well, because Space went in, and then he immediately backs off, perhaps just realizing that they've chosen the wrong time to go in for it because Violet and Twilight weren't vulnerable. And so as they back off, they lure Twilight and Violet out. You can see Twilight's positioning right now is very defensive, but he does end up pathing forwards, and then he gets dived on again. Violet pops a rally, which is really useful in this scenario because they know they're going to probably get dived on again. But now Twilight is in an aggressive position. And look, little shark, Kevster, has noticed it and can now come to the rest of his team that Twilight is a viable target. So as Twilight gets into a vulnerable location, now the dive comes through. Kevster in. They instead end up transitioning that to ANS, probably off a call from Mirror. And as far as I'm aware, I don't think this attempt actually works out, but you can see the cogs turning for the Gladiators, right? In terms of like how they're actually trying to set things up. Also, I don't really know what happens here with Glister, but he does blink into... He recalls into this self-destruct, and I don't understand how he managed that. Oh yeah, the other thing to note as well in this scenario is that Twilight dies because his like toe is peeking out from behind Violet's shield. So in theory, they should have caught 0 people with that space bomb because Twilight was hiding behind Violet's shield and Glister was recalling, but they both just messed it up, which is a little unfortunate. Retrace, thank you for the 5 months. And Ashiki, thanks for the 400 bits as well. Did you hear that Smurf duoed with Architect for a game the other day? Architect was using a VPN to connect to NA West Coast, and it took them 56 minutes in queue, only to end up getting put on Korean servers. Sure. That's kind of wild. But I mean, also, that kind of shit does happen at ISR, right? I don't know. So yeah, this 2K bomb ends up turning the fight for the Gladiators, but it's not... I mean, it's a good bomb by Space for sure, but it's not reproducible every time.
Thank you. Hi. Hey there. Hello.
Okay. So, this is the first team fight in the game where you see Shock be the aggressors, actually. So Gladiators are not set up to do anything proactively. Their players are all in passive positions. They're not really ready. Space is just getting some information on where people are positioned. And they end up being the defenders in this fight. The first time that we've seen this in, I don't know, 10 or more team fights. So it's actually Smurf that initiates with Glister into the backline. And Gladiators attempt to peel this. They don't attempt to go aggressive themselves. They try to peel, which is not a good idea. Choyobin does a great job here of being able to boop Muse and stop the counter dive from being as effective. You can see him here just harassing Muse the entire time. Sick pulse bomb by Glister, but then Kevster gets a really good one of his own as well, I think. But the point here being that the Gladiators comp is not very good when they're defending. They need to be initiating in these team fights. And it's good to see that when Shock... I mean, this is just a ridiculous pulse. If Smurf had not jumped there, ANS was also dead. So fast, those reactions by Smurf to jump in the air and act like a firework. But like, Choi is consistently on Muse there. But that's the difference. When Choyobin knows the flow of the fight, He's a monster. But if the Gladiators manage to push faster than Choyobin can react, then the shock look lost. Like, they can't peel effectively. Now this team fight is very weird. This is the final team fight from the shock.
They would have given him
Look what happens. So Smurf jumps in. He gets whip shot back, so he doesn't get the best initiation in the world. The Gladiators disengage to try and avoid giving shock value from the rally. But they know that the Gladiators have to push back in. And this is what Twilight loves to do. He goes all sneaky mode into a side building. And the rest of the team decide to path with him. So the entire backline of the shock is now behind the Gladiators. So, cool sneaky move. The problem is that no one gave ANS the memo. And so he is miles away. Just fucking miles away. And he is like a little tasty snack for the Gladiators to eat up. The Gladiators go for a dive here with no vision. And they don't realize that Twilight and Violet have snuck in behind them. But they pivot into ANS. And ANS is not holding, like, really defensively able to get away here. Mirror just jumps on him with a nano and rolls him. He gets bionaded as well. He just gets fucked here. And that seems to be a comms issue to me. Because I think Twilight might have just been planning to do this on his own. And then Violet and Choyobin decided to go with him. And so the whole of the shock team was essentially positioned in this area, apart from ANS. And you're just giving the Gladiators a viable dive target. And then he's just dead. And you've lost the team fight. And that's it. They genuinely have just lost the team fight from here. They have space on the objective. Look how aggressive, by the way, Shu and Skewed are. Instead of backing off when they get counter-dived, right? They were positioned like here. They've got good sight lines on their team as they're fighting. But Smurf jumps on them and puts down a bubble, which blocks Shu's healing. So instead of backing off and trying to stay alive or like rotating around the point to avoid the bubble, they just push forwards. Skewed and Shu are just pushing forwards, making sure that Skewed gets swings to proc his Inspire to be able to heal Shu as they do that. And it makes it so much easier for Space to be helpful offensively and defensively if the Gladiators backline plays in these really aggressive positions. But outside of the one team fight where ANS got caught out, I don't think that you can blame him at all for this loss here. But anyway, that was the first map. Let's take a look at the second, because there's more and more cool stuff the deeper you get into this game. Okay, so King's Row. This one was fucking ludicrous. Absolutely ludicrous. Oh yeah, Smurf is wildly consistent. He's actually outrageous. So, I did not think anyone would be playing Sombra Doom Ana Lucio. And now that the Gladiators have shown that it is viable as long as you don't bash your head into a brick wall. Like, I disagree with Avast when he says that this is a bad comp. I think that this is a good composition as long as Birdring is finding good value. But it can be countered, and you have to be able to be flexible enough to swap if you do get countered. Like, there's no point just trying over and over and over again like the Gladiators did against Paris without getting any value. You have to swap your comp and change your strat at some point. But I don't think that this is a bad thing to try and lean on. And I think that this might be something that Houston tries to play as well. Because if you think about like Dante, Happy playing this kind of stuff, as long as Happy's getting value on Doom, this team composition seems like it should be really good. But Birdring Sombra was fantastic in this map. It didn't look that great in the Paris game, but I don't know why. I haven't done an in-depth review of the Paris game in the replay viewer from Birdring's perspective, so I don't know whether the backline of Paris was very good at being able to like discover him and peel him away, people like Vistola or Khan. or whether Birdring himself was just not playing very well. But he played really well in this game. So let's take a look. The first thing we want to look at, honestly, is just watching things from Mirror's point of view, because the amount of value he has on Doom is insane. This shot composition is good, it's turtley, but Doomfists do have a large amount of value against it. This is the same kind of stuff that Sparkle was doing against the, like, Torb Reaper compositions on Junkertown and stuff. Like, this Doom is effective. So look at this. Shock have pathed up here, and the Gladiators have immediately altered their positioning to take the fight at this area. What does Spilo call them? He calls them like kill zones or something, doesn't he? But basically it's just the choke points in which you intend to take the fight. I can't remember what Spilo calls them, actually. Kill boxes? Is that what he calls them? Kill boxes? I think Spilo does a great job, by the way, of inventing good terminology. Like pressure cycles, I think, is a fantastic terminology. I don't know whether other people have used that before him, but he was the first person I saw that used it, and it's a great phrase that I think more people should be using. Anyway, though, the point is that Gladiators want to take the team fight here as they pass through this choke, and they are really they're really effective with it here as well. The idea is that Moth is going to be looking for boops to be able to isolate targets. They're going to engage with the seismic slam and the uppercut to be able to either set people up for boops or, again, isolate targets. The CC is just really good as well with Doomfist. And you can see that, like, FD God there has to use his bash defensively. He's just scouting to try and see positions of people, see where Moth is playing, but he still has the bash to be able to save himself. Super, you can see him trying to shield Moth's boops at times here as well. I think... I honestly don't know why Super goes for the charge, but I assume he was trying to catch, like, Muse or something on the dive, because he tries to do that quite a lot in this game. But look at the CC on the back line. They've so effectively separated Nero from the rest of the pack. And Super, I suppose, but that was Super's own initiative to really do that. Whereas Nero walked out here on his own. Nero gets booped to the low ground and gets destroyed. And what I want to note here is how fast Mirror was from seismic slamming and uppercutting to just immediately changing his priority to someone down on the floor. The comm structure from the Gladiators feels fast. It feels very quick because they change their priorities instantly. It's good. Yeah, it is very good. So, yeah, easy kill there onto Nero. Completely abuse him. Isolate Super as well. And these four players were never given an opportunity to even get in through the choke point. They couldn't peel for the rest of their team. They couldn't really effectively do damage or anything. The backline was totally useless because they were just paralyzed in place by all of the boops that were coming through from the Gladiators. The Diva, the Winston, like, all of these characters have boops apart from Birdring and Shu. They have 4 people that can do some kind of soft or hard CC on you to stop you being able to take space. And try and, like, break your spacing up. I wonder if being on low ping helps Kevster's comms too. You've got to be trolling me. You've got to be capping with that comment. Fucking hell. So, let's take a look at this from Birdring's perspective here, because this shows the beginning of a theme that he was going for this entire match. Or at least this entire map. It's the hacks onto Violet. So, he's scouting, calling positioning. Again, just getting free vision, free info to be able to set up for the Gladiators. He comes out of stealth at some point here. Okay, so Amp Matrix goes down. And I want to show you guys the positioning of everybody else as well. Mirror's up on the high ground, ready to drop and punch people. Muse is around the corner, ready to jump past this Amp Matrix. And Space is holding an off angle, ready to just defense Matrix and then boost her in. So they're all in position to be able to go off this. And the go key is Violet getting hacked. Violet gets hacked, no immortality field. Now you can just crush them. Another thing to note here as well is Super going for this defensive pin, because it doesn't land this time, but that does end up being really important as we get later through the series, because once he starts landing these, which obviously a bit of like fucking RNG, but once he lands these, it can completely change the tide of a fight. But okay, this is like a big setup engage from the Gladiators, all set up by the vision and timing that Birdring is providing, and also the hack onto Violet that disables Immortality Field. But then you've just got a nano boosted Doomfist in there, and Mirror is crushing them. Absolutely crushing them. Also, by the way, they dived past an Amp Matrix there. Like, such disrespect. But they just know that if they play fast enough, they can secure these kills before the Shock can do anything. So we skip things forward a bit as Shock try and gather themselves to get back into this team fight. They path around the side. And I want to show you what Mirror is doing in some of these team fights too. It's not necessarily always Mirror going for the dive. In this scenario, they're diving onto the back line of FD God and Nero. They've got a hack onto Nero, which stops him being able to, you know, pop his overload and stuff. And Mirror, instead, is CCing the tanks. He has seismic... He punched Super to break the spacing of these guys. He's uppercutted him to stop the tanks from being able to come and peel. He's now taking Choyobin's attention as well. Like, Mirror is not actively involved in this dive, but he's stopping the Shock from being able to peel because he's just applying all this CC to the rest of their team. And in the meantime, the rest of the squad is on... FD God and Nero, the Muse, Birdring, Space, and they're able to finish off FD God. Obviously, problems in terms of the Shock not understanding what the Gladiators are trying to do. Again, if you know that the Gladiators are going to engage and try and break you up as you go through choke points like this, you need to be really cautious of your positioning. You can't have, like, Nero and FD God off over here. Your composition requires you to be deathballing. So, yeah, big problems there from the Shock. And again, in my opinion, it's them being able to identify what the Gladiators are going to do before they do it. They keep looking like they're getting caught off guard, like surprised. Yeah, Space was Defense Matrix in the Amp Matrix most of the time. And then he came swooping in afterwards. That was the previous team fight. Okay, so this is also another cool play from the Gladiators. The Gladiators are really, really fucking coordinated with their punch shatters. Obviously, you don't have a punch shatter here because Muse is playing Winston, not Ryan. But they're also very good at punch bio-nades. So look at this. Shu is getting a speed boost here from Moth, and Shu is running first into Super because he just has all the confidence in the world that Mirror is going to be able to get this punch off and he's going to be able to land the Bionade. Shu is literally just running forwards because he knows that Super Shield is not going to be up. So this is an EMP engage as well. They've all been hiding to play aggressive. Birdring is feeding them the info this entire time, by the way, because Birdring is just holding here, watching them path, giving them the timing for this engage. And again, it's the Gladiators being hyper proactive, not letting Shock set up for a moment. But I just thought it was really funny how fast Shu is aggressively playing here. Because even if Super didn't get caught by this EMP, he'd be getting caught by the punch anyway, and Shu would be able to land this big Bionade. The Bionade, in fact, only catches onto Super, but that's all they need. That's just a pick, and they can try and reset. I think they were hoping for a little more in this fight. I don't think they actually do manage to get too much more. The Shock end up backing off because FD God does a good job of being able to pop the rally here in time. Because you have to be able to pop the rally before the EMP comes out, right? Otherwise, you just don't have the sustain of being able to hold it. This is a bit of a mistake from Shu, though. They end up losing point A because of Shu here, honestly. So if you just watch what they do here, they try and go for a little re-engage with the Nano Boost. I think he's trying to Nano Boost Muse, but he actually Nano Boosts Mirror. And Mirror gets whip shot by FD God. Again, FD God doing massive amounts of work in this team fight. And now Muse is weak, and he's also not nano boosted, and your nano boosted player is not in the team fight. So this is a bit of a mistake, I think, because I think the intended nano boost target was Muse. There's another pin as well that ends up being really important, that super lands more and more of those, and also the free shatters that you can get out of the Gladiators. And if we continue watching Shu here as well, Shu actually... Shu wastes his sleep dart on FD God there. I mean, you can argue whether or not it's a waste, because maybe it does help in the middle of the fight. And so Glista realizes that he can get a free teleport. Oh, wait, maybe he wastes... Yeah, he wasted... Yeah. So Shu doesn't have sleep available. Glista knows this because he saw FD God asleep. And so Glista just goes for a teleport into the back. And he just kills Shu, because Shu has nothing on cooldown. So, unfortunately, Shu nano boosts the wrong target and then ends up getting picked off here. But big plays by FD God and Glista to be able to turn this one around. But overall, like, a very good defense from the Gladiators. Extremely proactive, again. Catching the Shock off many, many times as they were rotating through. I think the Shock need to play more compositions that allow them to be the aggressors. To me, the Shock have always been at their best when they controlled the tempo. In this series, they didn't control the tempo once. They ended up winning this map, and they were the worst team on King's Row. People got mad at me, by the way, as well, for saying that I didn't think Shock deserved to win the London game. They were like, oh, if Shock won it, they deserved it. Fuck, what? So, what, you always deserve exactly what you get? There's no difference between what you achieve and what you deserve? What? How can you make everything so results-based? That's outrageous. The Shock made so many mistakes. I think they deserve to lose that series. And in this series as well, these maps, for example, like King's Row, I think the Shock were very lucky to be able to win King's Row. Super played really well, though. Especially the later it got throughout King's Row. So Gladiators go for a recontest here, and they almost get it as well. It's just that the Shock are able to zone people off the objective with the Death Blossom and then the self-destruct. But this is just chaos at this point, right? There's nothing strategically to talk about here. It's just players trying to get as much value as they can out of their individual heroes. But it was very close to the Gladiators being able to just full hold. Oh yeah, it's the Molten Core and the self-destruct that actually end up zoning people off. And they just can't. But that was butt-clenchingly close. So now the Gladiators are playing without any ultimates because they invested them on point A, and they're playing in very close, tight, confined areas. And Violet has an Amp Matrix, so Shock are going to win the next team fight here. It would be hard for them not to, honestly. This part of the map favors their composition the most, and Violet has an Amp Matrix. Unless Mirror popped off. I guess there are actually win conditions for Gladiators, but they don't manage to find any of them. I don't really want to talk about this team fight too much, though. The player I want to focus on again here is actually Shu. Please address the horde of people saying Lucio Brig is bad in this comp. What is your opinion? What? No one's playing Lucio Brig. What do you mean, Rudra? Oh, saying Brig is bad in this comp? What, the Shock's comp? Well, the Shock's composition is designed to just have as much tankiness as possible. If the Shock had a Lucio in this composition, if the Shock had a Lucio in this comp, if FD God was playing Lucio, in theory, he might be able to, like, speed boost disengage them from some scenarios, but then you also lose the whip shot ability to deny Muse. I guess you could argue that he can try and deny him on Lucio or something as well, and just boop him away, but most of the time you're going to try and position yourself defensively rather than trying to deny the Winston. So, I don't think so. For something like King's Row, where you don't actually need to be... Like, would the Shock have been able to path more effectively with Lucio? Possibly, yeah. But when they get dived by Gladiators, I'm not sure it gives them more ways of being able to win the team fight. I don't think it's a comp. I mean, you could argue it's a comp problem because Shock don't have any ability to control the tempo themselves. They're always playing reactively, but I don't think Lucio would necessarily help them here. I think Batbrig is pretty fine. This, unfortunately, is another lost team fight due to a missed nano boost. So, just showing this again. They're going to get set up for this. The idea is to go for, like, Birdring's got an EMP coming up, but you can stall it with Muse. You can apply a nano boost to him. He's going to get Primal as well. You have opportunity to then EMP and Bionade. You know, there's many ways that the Gladiators can end up winning this. Unfortunately, Shu accidentally Bionades... accidentally... Nano boosts Birdring here instead of Muse. All very understandable mistakes from Shu, I think. It's just unfortunate the way that they're playing out. Like, Birdring just jumped in front of his crosshair at the exact moment he went to nano boost Muse, and now Muse has to pop his Primal really early on, and he already had to use his bubble earlier, so Super just lands a absolutely free shatter here. The freest of shatters. They use EMP here, but, I mean, they just don't have damage output when you've nano boosted your Sombra. It's over at that point, basically. Yeah, Rhine without Lucio is not often good, but if your whole aim is just to reactively peel, then it can still be fine in this scenario. The thing is, though, if you're playing the Brig, more so than ever, you have to be able to understand what the Gladiators are doing before they do it. Like, FD God and Violet have to position themselves in defensive locations before the hit comes in, not as it's happening, right? You can't react and get yourself into a good position. By that time, it's already too late. And this last team fight is actually a really good example of that, because this is where the Shock does do that really well. Actually, maybe they got one more team fight here. Yeah, there was one more team fight here where Gladiators tried to invest the sound barrier, and they had Rally and a Death Blossom to be able to deal with it. The Rally is also, yeah, by the way, Rally is fucking excellent. It is a wildly good ultimate. It's better than sound barrier at being able to deal with EMP, and it gives you outrageous amounts of tanky sustain. So that in itself is also a great reason for why you would want to play Brig here. But okay, this is the final team fight for Shock's offense, and the Gladiators have some serious tools to be able to work with here. They can Diva Bomb engage, so they can send in a Diva Bomb that would look something like this. They'd bomb their way into the back line. They'd have Birdring come around the side to do some hacking or get damage onto somebody. Muse can leap in. You've got Mirror as well with his ultimate available, so he can play even more aggressively. So the Gladiators here are clearly going to set up for something aggressive. You have to expect that if you are the Shock. And they do. They do really well. So Violet thinks about getting up onto the high ground because he's trying to be defensive here. And then he's like, okay, well, first of all, I should try and get value out of my ult. He wants to ult on the payload. As they ult on the payload, basically the exact second they ult on the payload, Space goes for this Diva Bomb engage. But what I want to point your attention to is watch FD God here. He's backing off. He's already moving backwards as they use Amp Matrix. He's not going forwards to take a fight with the Amp Matrix. He knows that the Gladiators are going to attack past the Amp Matrix. So he is backing off. If he tries to react to this, if he starts moving, if he moves forward with the Amp Matrix to support the rest of his team and is playing just around the payload, and then he's like, oh shit, there's a Diva Bomb engage, I've got to start backing. He's not going to be around the corner. He's going to be where Violet is now. But the fact that he preemptively starts moving backwards 2-3 seconds before the engage comes in, the fact he's not reacting, but he's preempting what the Gladiators are going to do, makes all the difference here. And Violet as well. Being able to get up on the high ground. They dodge the Seismic Slam. They don't get CC'd into the Diva Bomb because they've already thought about the threat of that happening. And so now FD God, Nero, Violet, they're all in really good defensive positions. And now the threat is gone. Gladiators have used their abilities. They can push back in. It's this level of anticipation of what the Gladiators can do that allows you to be able to peel them off. You can't react to them, though. Otherwise, they're too fast. They'll just be all over you. But they win this because their backline was able to identify the threat early.
Apagando las luces.
60 seconds remaining.
I think Gladiators fucking boomed themselves playing against Paris on Route 66. I think running their heads into a brick wall over and over again on Route 66 point C destroyed their mental, and they were just out of the game from then on. They didn't swap their comps. They just tried to run the same shit over and over without making any adaptation. And I think they were mentally out of it as well. Anyway, talking about this game. Let's jimmy things along. Okay. Oops. We've gone too far. I didn't realize these were 20-second jumps. I thought they were 10-second.
5, 4, 3, 2.
Wait, is that because I had it up to 2 times speed? Does that also affect the jump distance? That'd be wild. Okay. So this engage from the Gladiators is also really fucking cool, but it also highlights, I think, the like individual mistakes of the Shock. So opening engagement, Shoryobin's getting information, see what composition they're running. They teleport to the high ground, which allows their backline to be able to avoid getting dived, puts Shu in a really nice position very early on in the team fight as well. And the idea here is that they want to try and take this high ground away from the Shock. So how do they do it? Let's take a look. Their tanks start moving forwards, and the 2 players that you really crucially want to get into position are Birdring and Moth, actually. So we're going to watch Birdring, gets pressured, has to translocate a little bit. Now I want to watch Moth. So take a look at Moth's positioning here. They poke a little bit, Muse, bit of objective pressure, they back off, just feeling out what the Shock are going to do to respond to them, seeing if they can bait Shock to drop to the low ground. But that's not going to happen. So now we watch Moth. Moth paths all the way around while his team waits for him. And this is super cool. So Mirror is going to go for this Doomfist tech jump where he, like, I don't even know what the fucking word for this is. I'm sure there's some terminology for Doom parkour experts. But he bounces off this. A diag punch. There you go. A diag punch. He bounces off this, slides up it, and whoomps into the top there. Really nice engage. But what's important to note in the midst of all of this too is that if they don't find anything with this engagement, they also are getting Moth in position. If Moth tries to get above the Shock on his own, they will shoot him. But if you cause a distraction with the dive at the same time, you can get Moth into a much better position. So let's take a look at this engagement as it happens. Fucking cool jump by Mirror. Wow! So much height. Good fast engagement. Both tanks are in. Birdring's behind as well, looking for engagements. And the Shock have reacted well to this. They understood what was happening. They heard the jump being, the punch being charged up. And so the Shock have backed off into this room here. Most of them anyway. But crucially, Moth is now in position. And so the Gladiators back up a little bit. Take this back up to nearly full speed. Oh, we'll put it to full speed, sure. And now Moth is in position to be the initiator. Now Moth can actually try and boot people and have that isolation be the setup for the Gladiators to win the team fight. Super recognizes this. He's got his shield angled upwards to avoid getting booped. Nero does not recognize this. And he gets booped. If you remember before to this pathing around here and this pathing around here, all 3 of these instances had Nero be the player that was out of position. Which is what I meant partially. This wasn't the game where I tweeted it, but these are the moments I was thinking about as well when I was watching the Shock London game, where I saw that I was noticing a lot of mistakes coming out from Nero and Violet. Because in this scenario, it's not like it was impossible for Nero to back up with the rest of his team. He wasn't getting value by playing on the edge or anything like that. He just isn't behind the Rhine Shield properly, doesn't recognize that Moth is a threat and gets booped. I don't think he's even the first death here, but he's the reason that Shock loses this team fight, because now with Nero on the floor, FD God ends up getting punished. So look at this. This might be like one of the reasons, again, why people are so hard on FD God too, because you get scenarios like this where FD God is trying to peel Moth away, and these guys, the rest of the Shock, are trying to make sure that Nero doesn't die, right? So now Shock have to have worse positions, the rest of them, like Super, FD God, Choyobin, to try and save Nero, who's been booped to the low ground. Now, Nero has actually managed to get out. He's got his ice block, he's got his May wall. This dude is fine. He's fine. But the rest of the Shock don't necessarily know that at the beginning. So they have to push out here to make sure that they're ready to support Nero if required. And part of that is FD God coming out to put pressure on Moth to stop Moth from being able to boop Super. Because if Moth boops Super down as well here, then they are completely fucked. The problem is that the Gladiators instantly change their objective from punishing Nero to punishing FD God for going for this. So within a fraction of a second, remember that we're watching this at 0.25 here, and they have used their abilities not to go for Nero or for Super, but they've instantly gone for the punish on FD God. And he gets rinsed. Spaces in his face. He boops Muse away, but he still is taking damage. And FD God tries to escape around the side, but Space is on him the whole time. And then Birdring is as well. And Moth was on him at the beginning too. And so FD God ends up dying here for Nero's sins. There is a lot happening in 1 second, right? But the crucial thing is that Nero's boop creates a situation where Shock have to make this aggressive, not aggressive, but like they have to try and peel for Nero, which means they have to put themselves in harm's way. Gladiators realize this and then punish the people who are coming to peel for Nero. And so it's not that FD God made a mistake there, at least in my lowly gold opinion. It's that the flowchart of the Shock was forced down this path by the earlier mistake. And now from here, I mean, you've lost a player. You don't really have anyone to play around. Super now gets booped to the low ground as well. And it all crumbles. It all falls to pieces. Good engage from the Gladiators, for sure. They forced errors out of the Shock. But in a team fight like this, like, what more can the Shock do after they've made that initial mistake? It's hard to recover. Their comp isn't really a good composition for being able to recover those team fights. By the way, I also don't think that the Mei does anything for them. You'll see in overtime, Nero swaps to Torbjorn, which I think is way better for them. But the Mei is just useless against the Gladiators comp. I don't know why they run it. So here the Shock try to retake with the BAP ultimate. And the Gladiators wait for people to get into position, and then they dive them with the nano. So they kind of pressure them a little bit here. They back it up, and now they're waiting. They're waiting for Birdring to get into position. They're waiting for Mirror to return and get into position. They're waiting, and now they go. They initiate with this nano boost. And just like before, where some pressure somewhere isolated somebody else, like pressure on Nero isolated FD God. In this scenario, pressure in the backline isolates Super. Super is forced to play the objective here. There's nothing else he can do. What, just give up point A? That's, you know, that's not playing to your win conditions. Super has to just hope that he survives this. And Muse, instead of hard committing on this backline dive, Mirror just goes in, is able to CC people, and then Muse returns with his nano boost to deal with Super. And so they've pressured the backline, isolated a player, been able to get Super. As for why this Mei wall comes up by Nero, I don't know. And again, Shock are way too slow at realizing that Gladiators they've already gone. These guys are still in peel mode. These guys are still thinking, oh fuck, we're the people under attack. When actually, Super's the one under attack. The Gladiators have acted way faster than the Shock have reacted. If Shock had identified what was going on here, then, you know, Violet should already be pathing back to try and get the heals on him, which he is trying to. And Nero's wall as well would not particularly be used there. But, I mean, whatever. At the end of the day, the Gladiators work that really nicely, and it's Shock are put in an uncomfortable position because Super has to touch the objective. So, yeah, I liked that as well from the Gladiators. Again, just the speed with which they're changing priority focus in the middle of team fights is extremely impressive, in my opinion. We also get a team fight in the streets here. The streets phase is where the Shock should be at their best. It's where their team composition with the Reinhardt Cleave, with the Mei Walls, with the Reaper, it's where they should be at their best, right? So, in this fight, they actually do a good job with it. So, Nero is in with the Blizzard. Moth ends up popping his sound barrier here, but he gets frozen and identified as a target and isolated. So Moth goes down very early on. Caught by the Blizzard. Again, the Shock's comp is just good in the streets phase because it's so much more claustrophobic. But I want to show you what they do here as well. The Gladiators take stock of the situation. Maybe looks even more dramatic. They're taking stock of the situation when you consider we're playing it in 0.25. But look at these players. Mirror and Space are waiting for another engage. And they make this decision to re-engage with a Diva Bomb. And so, I thought this was clean as fuck. This is in the middle of a really chaotic fight. They're down 5v6, and Space goes for a bomb that's set up with Mirror. So, Space goes for this bomb, Mirror gets Nano, and they push back in with these three players. And Mirror's CC here gets everybody killed. He punches Glister, gets that kill, uppercuts both of the players in the backline so they can't dodge the bomb. Tries to seismic slam Violet as well, and the backline is just dead. Thanks to the coordination of that play, where you have the CC coming out from Mirror and the Diva Bomb coming out from Space. I thought that was lovely. Like a very, very well-turned team fight. It's unusual to turn team fights when Moth dies first. I think they only have like a 7%, I want to say, team fight win rate when Moth dies first, but that might be exaggerating a little, but I think it's something like that. So I think these are partly the reasons why I had this opinion that Gladiators were the best team that we'd seen, because this kind of pace that they're playing at was just unmatched by any of the other teams. The problem is that when you got to claustrophobic areas like this, but it's point C of Route 66, they just fucked up, and then they weren't willing to change their strategy. And then they mentally boomed themselves and got reverse swept. So I was very pissed off watching the Gladiators Paris game, but we'll talk about that later. What's up, Ayua? How's it going? Alright, so the Gladiators now being able to push back in. Oh, shit, actually, yeah, this was another really clean team fight that I wanted to talk about. So, immediately after winning this one, Birdring storms forwards. So, even before the Shock have come off the respawn, Gladiators have set up for the next team fight. They're already ready for the next team fight. Birdring is here. Mirror is here. They're ready for the next team fight. They're already thinking about it before the Shock have even respawned. The neurons are fucking firing for this team, man. And the Shock are never being the team setting the tempo. It's always the Glads. So look at this engage. It's very similar to the one on point A where they hack Violet and then Mirror just wrecks him. So Violet gets hacked and then he's a dive target. And he gets obliterated. Even though FD God is healing him. I mean, FD God can't proc his Inspire. He's miles away from everyone else. They're coming off the fucking respawn, for God's sake. And Violet just gets minced. Amp Matrix, wasted, because you've now given up all of this space. They're fighting past your Amp Matrix. Look at this Amp Matrix, by the way. This is where the Shock thought they were taking this team fight. This is where they thought they were taking the team fight. Here. This is where they thought the kill box was going to be. This is where they ended up taking the team fight. The Shock have no idea, even at this point in the series, when they're 1-0 down and they've fought against the Gladiators playing aggressively this entire time, they don't understand how aggressive the Glads are going to be. They're getting caught off guard over and over again because they just don't understand how fast the Gladiators are going to play. It really does catch people off guard if you play this fast. I think that's just so funny, seeing the like fact that Shock thought they were going to get value out of this, and then looking at fucking the space that they ended up having, it's non-existent. So yeah, like I said, Violet dies, no value from the Amp Matrix, obviously no immortality field now, so Super becomes a target that the tanks are pressuring. You push them back, you're going to be able to take point B here pretty easily, pretty fucking easily. They have no heals, they have no Amp Matrix, they have no immortality field. I mean, even with the Shatter, and honestly, the Shock do a good job, even looking competent in this team fight. By the way, Nero's turret is fucking dominating all throughout this, doing so much damage. The Shock, it's amazing that they do anything in this team fight when they didn't have Violet available at the beginning. I mean, Violet fucking frisbees in an immortality field towards the end of the team fight there, but it's still just not enough. The early pick onto Violet is the thing that matters. If Violet didn't die and they actually took the fight here, Shock would win. I mean, Shock nearly won the 5v6, but it's because Gladiators are proactive and they killed Violet before the team fight happened that they get that win, that they secure checkpoint B. I mean, Birdring's EMP there catches absolutely no one as well. It's not like... This is the other thing, too. Gladiators are not playing perfectly. They're not. Like, there's mistakes from Shu, there's mistakes from Muse, that his bubble timing was pretty poor across this match. Birdring's Sombra EMPs were not that great, but they're doing enough well, and they're doing it fast enough that they're still able to beat the Shock. But no, by no means are they a perfect team. That's why I said in my tweet that it doesn't mean that much that Gladiators looked like they were the best so far, because we hadn't seen the teams that we actually think are going to be better than them, like Dallas, like Shanghai, like... I guess you could potentially argue the Washington Justice in this matter as well, or maybe possibly Houston. But yeah, they looked good, but they didn't look perfect. I mean, this turret is just pounding in damage over the course of this team fight. And it is a crazy long team fight. But Gladiators eventually managed to scrap it out. There's not too much interesting to say strategically in the middle of all of this, because people are just coming back up to respawn, desperately trying to win. There's another frisbeed in Batiste immortality field. That's the second time Violet's come off the respawn and tried to just throw stuff in, trying to help the rest of his team. So a crazy team fight, but remember that it was all set up in a 6v5 advantage for the Gladiators because they were proactive. And then the rest of the map, I kind of just want to skip through a little bit because the Gladiators do end up completing here, and they have a larger time bank. EMP comes through, Bionade, they just get destroyed. That's really simple. Birdring with a good EMP that time. They managed to push towards the back. They reset a little bit. But yeah, the rest of this is just Gladiators muscling their way through. The Super gets isolated off in the corner over there. Ends up getting CC'd, dies. That gives them an opening. They can push forwards. Okay. Personally, I don't find this to be that interesting, the end of this regulation time. But what I did think was interesting... Okay, well, we'll get to it. EMP to be able to close things out. Okie dokie. Let's skip a little bit forwards. Alright. And now, you might be asking yourself, okay, well, if the Gladiators look like the better team on King's Row, which I would argue that they did in regulation time, if the Gladiators are looking like the better team, then why did they lose? Why did they lose the fucking map? Shock ended up winning King's Row here. I think the answer is twofold. First of all, the Shock made good adaptations. Putting Nero over onto the Torbjorn, I think, was a good adaptation that helps them. And ended up working positively in their favor. They also changed some stuff about how they were trying to poke Gladiators early and not just allow them to set up for a free dive. And Super landed one of those backwards pins that he's been going for, which is a big clutch play that changes the course of a really important team fight. So let's take a look. Let's start things. So the Shock are going to path through Hotel this time, and the Gladiators are going to go for a very similar engage to one that you've already seen in this VOD review. So Mirror is going to get up top. He's going to get ready for the boop. So this is pretty much the exact same setup as we had when Shock were pushing underneath here with the Amp Matrix. What happened that time, if you remember, chat, I'm not going to make it a pop quiz, is that Violet got hacked. Violet got hacked, Mirror dropped down, punched Violet, easy kill, then Mirror takes a nano boost and is able to clean everybody up. This is a zero ult version of that fight, though. There are no ults on board, and they've taken more spread positions here, the Shock. Space does not control the archway. So, Violet doesn't even get hacked in this engagement. They just drop and kill him anyway. So Violet doesn't, I think, realize that Mirror is gunning for him. Doesn't drop an immortality field. Just gets pasted against the wall. But here comes the absolute Chad himself, doing the same backwards pin that he did last time, but this time it catches Muse. And this just changes the entire fight. It really does. Because now, instead of having Muse and Space being able to do damage to the other targets and finish them off, and okay, Mirror also had the nano boost last time too, instead of being able to have all of that extra offensive power from your tanks, Muse is dead, and Space is trying to peel. So that means that Mirror is alone in here. Now, also, FD got a bash and got enough damage onto Birdring that he made him translocate away. So Mirror is basically the only player that's inside here trying to fight. So this is now a very ineffective dive for the Gladiators because they don't have their D.Va and their Winston playing aggressively with Mirror. Their D.Va is trying to peel to keep the Winston alive. Their Winston got pinned, so he died. And now Mirror is left all alone. And that just changes the teamfight completely. Completely. Because you're now, instead of all going aggressive and all being on the same page, you're now forced to kind of chop and change between attack and defense, and you don't have enough damage to be able to win the team fight early. And the longer the team fight goes, the better it is for the Shock. Even with Violet dead. So, at this point, Shock are now able to get onto the objective. Muse and Mirror are both dead, so the Gladiators can't really contest. Space doesn't want to get demeched. They give them 2 ticks. And at this point, when Muse and Space engage, they've already lost the game, they just don't know it yet, because they gave Shock 95%. So, because the Gladiators have Muse and Mirror coming off the respawn, they want to give Shock as many ticks as possible, and then play for themselves to be able to take point A. The Gladiators do end up winning this team fight. I don't even want to bother showing you it, because it's not important. They lost because they gave the Shock 95%, because the Shock won the previous team fight. So now what do the Shock do well on their defense? Because you still have to hold.
Initiate. Ready. Ready.
So, if you remember, last time when they were defending, they had FD got on Lucio, he was the player that got picked, but Nero, the guy that got booped to the low ground, was playing Mei. I don't think the Mei is that effective, honestly, and if you remember as well, Glista was trying to position himself in this window, because it's got great poke sightlines onto people who are playing the point, playing the objective, playing like long range stuff. But because Gladiators went for such a short range, like zhumph, straight onto the objective, Glista couldn't really have as much impact as he would have liked, I think. So Glista now positions himself here, and Nero positions himself here. So Nero can't get booped, and Glista can do way more poke damage. So those are the 2 adjustments, I think, that end up being the difference makers. But let's take a look at it.
2, 1. Attackers.
Your chest was so sexy on broadcast. Thank you. Thank you, Bad to Life. So they're just poking a little bit at the beginning, but Nero... sorry, let's show this from Glista's POV, actually, because we didn't see it on the broadcast from Glista's POV. I think the casters gave credit to Nero, but you can tell that it's Glista. His ult charge goes up massively. I haven't actually watched this from his POV, though. I don't know how nice the shots were. But he's able to do way more poke damage onto the Gladiators here. Oh, nice headshot. Double headshot from Glista. Okay, so, I mean, again, just fucking run this guy. He's nasty. Just run this guy. So now Mirror's dead, and they're wasting their time bank, waiting for him to respawn. By the way, Glista has the nastiest shots I've ever seen on Junkertown. In the next map, he has the nastiest shots I've ever seen on McCree.
60 seconds remaining.
And people were saying that the reason that they lost was because they didn't have Striker playing long range hitscan. Give me a fucking break. So now Glista's repositioned back in this high ground. Nero and him both doing damage to the people on the objective. They're not giving Gladiators an opportunity to isolate a player. They're just playing for the point because there's only a minute left on the clock. And when the Gladiators fight, I'm pretty sure Shock just completely kites them here, if memory serves. Yeah, so they go for a nano boost engage, and the Shock just vamoose. And again, this is what I'm talking about, man. All of these players knew what was coming. So they didn't react to the Gladiators. They preempted them. They had already got into position to make this reaction before the nano came out. You have to know what the threat is in order to react to it properly and fast enough. You have to have already started reacting before the action even happens. Otherwise, you're going to get caught by stuff like this. And so in this scenario, this is perfect from the Shock. They've already identified what's going to happen. They know there's going to be some kind of dive onto them. They back off. They kite it completely. And then as they come back in, the Gladiators now, in desperation, try to go for a re-engage. But their players aren't in position. Birdring isn't in position. He hasn't got a hack target off. Muse has already used his bubble cooldown, which is going to end up actually being crucial for them. And he wasted his bubble as well. He just jumped in the middle here, and then he put down his bubble without even utilizing it, so that's a completely wasted cooldown. And they go up top, and they're going to try and re-engage back onto the backline as they path through here. So Space boops through them. Nice play by Space to be able to put them back in position where Mirror can get a nice punch. And honestly, I am going to say it. He gets a bit unlucky here, Mirror, to not find a pick. Because he's going in the middle of a big fucking group of Shock players, but he just misses them all. And that's just some of the RNG involved with Doom when you're going for stuff like that. But then Glista, again, is in a really good position. Violet has an early immortality field. He's been trying to use them late in a lot of these fights, but I like them early because you know that Gladiators have to win the team fight early. This gives Glista and Violet all the space they need to beam down Mirror, and that's it. That's the fight. Even though there was a big Bionade in the middle of it, Muse doesn't have his bubble to be able to play around, so he just gets destroyed. And that's it. That's the game. Yeah, I think Nero probably did expect punch. Chipsa says, if the enemy team has a brain, Doom is shit.
10 seconds.
I don't think that's true. But I do think... I mean, maybe what he means by that is that you have to... here's the thing. When Chips is playing Doom, he isn't playing it with a team that's as coordinated as the Gladiators. So, in the scenarios where he, in ranked, is getting countered, they're not set... The rest of his team is not setting him up for the same level of success that they're setting Mirror up for. You know, like, everyone on the Gladiators is engaging all together at the beginning of these fights, and they're putting Mirror in a position to succeed. That isn't happening to Chipsa. And also, the Shock have made mistakes in not being able to respect the pace at which the Gladiators are playing at. So, I think it's twofold. Like, clearly the Shock would decimate some ranked team just running Doom. It's not that they're losing to that. But you have to be ready for the... you have to be ready for it. And in some sense, I mean, they were ready for it in this overtime. They had made the right adaptation. If a team has a brain and ears, rollout Doom is shit. Yeah, I mean, for example, like the Mirror play from the bottom of Statue and stuff, they did read that. It's just that they didn't read the second engage when Moth got the boop. Okay, I want to show you some fucking wild shit on Junkertown. I'm telling you, man, I ain't never seen a kill like this from Glister. It's very close to the beginning of the game, actually, as well. Also, the Gladiators ran Kevster on Genji here, and I'm skipping all of that because that was dog shit. I'm sorry, I don't know what they were going for. Like, the Kevster Genji on Junkertown point A is not the play. I'm not going to sit here and try to analyze that. It's just not right. It's just not right. Daddy Eddie, thank you for the 15 months. All right. So I'm going to skip through this first team fight, really, because the Shock are just fighting at spawn, you know. These team fights never work, but they take time off the clock. That's the whole point of them. So, okay. Expected results occur. I saw the Birdring Sombra was dire. I mean, it wasn't in this series. The Birdring Sombra was really good in this series. At least, the Birdring Sombra had moments where it was really good. But it wasn't consistently excellent. And then, I think against Paris, he was getting shut down or missing his timings pretty hard, but I'm not exactly sure which. Okay, so here's the crazy... Wait, maybe it's not this one. It's actually, I think it's the next team fight. But look, they aggressively fight the Shock as they're pathing through. They don't allow the Shock to be able to get in. They fight them as they're getting back to the objective. I love that. Again, just being so proactive there. I mean, if we... Let's actually just take a moment to appreciate that. They're coming in. They hack Super. They're diving FD God as he paths through. FD God can't hide behind the rest of his team because he's getting uppercut. There's literally nothing he can do about that. He has to path with the rest of the Shock, and Kevster will always have opportunities to uppercut. And whoever he uppercuts is getting pulled away from the rest of their team and can't... They're just paralyzed in midair, and the rest of the people are killing them. So, you know, what the fuck can FD God do about this? The only thing they can do, the Shock, is try and bait that out and avoid it happening, right? So instead of you just blindly trying to path through and assuming you're going to get through for free, maybe you like try and peek out, fake the push so that the Gladiators dive and you retreat or something. It's very hard to be able to deal with that if the Gladiators are going to fight you like in the tiny space. They're like Spilo saying, or Spilo, I don't know how to pronounce his name. The kill boxes are just correct for the Gladiators. The places in which they want to take the fights are really good. What is the logic of the rectangle man here? That you're supposed to be able to get many, many different team fights because you're playing fast. Unfortunately, the Gladiators are fighting them before they even get to the objective, so they're not really slowing down the payload. So here's this sicko play. I don't think the casters even realized it was happening, actually, at the time. Because again, when you're playing as fast as the Gladiators, people don't expect it, and that's not just the Shock, it's also the broadcast talent as well. But when you look at Birdring's positioning here, I'm just going to show you again what I was talking about on Ilios, man. It's all about information for the Gladiators, right? It's about info. In order to get their timings for these fast engages, they need info on when the Shock are in the right places for them to take the fight. And so sometimes that's going to be space, but if Birdring is playing Sombra, they're getting big value out of Birdring playing Sombra in these positions because he's feeding them timings. He's the one that's telling them, okay, go. Like, no one else has vision right now. If you look at the rest of the team, okay, Kev's staring at a fucking wall because he's getting set up there for the dive. Muse is staring at a fucking wall, just waiting, hiding. Space doesn't have any vision because he's setting up for a Diva Bomb. And the backline's out here. Like, Birdring is the mouthpiece. And as he sees Super set up, they're going to go for a Diva Bomb engage. So, Birdring spots Super at the door. Space Diva Bombs through the window. I fucking love this, by the way. This is so aggressive. Again, the Shock are coming off the bloody respawn, and they're catching them over and over with this kind of shit. So, Diva Bomb through the window, Translocator, EMP, Bomb, and Mirror and Muse. Sorry, not Mirror, Kevster this time. Kevster and Muse are coming off it. Super gets killed immediately by this bomb that comes through. Giga Brain. I fucking love that. You know that they're going to recontest point A. If they get onto the payload, the Shock are in a prime position to be able to win it. So you're fighting them as they're pathing there. I think that is gorgeous from the Gladiators. I think that's a lovely, lovely set play. Just really cool set plays that are catching off the San Francisco Shock all the time. All the fucking time. And now Muse and Kevster are fighting here. Now, I will say, what the fuck is Muse doing taking a 1v1 against Choyobin here when the rest of his team is fighting down there? The rest of his team is fighting these scraps of the San Francisco Shock that are coming back in. Meanwhile, Muse is taking a 1v1 against a hacked Choyobin. And he just returns to the fight afterwards. I don't know why he was doing that. Maybe he was deliberately trying to keep Choyobin away from the fight because they thought that was important. But it seemed very weird to me that he didn't path with Kevster. Odd, but perhaps intended. I don't really know. All right, now I'm going to show you the best kill I've ever seen. I'm not going to lie. It was the most unexpected kill I've ever seen. Let's put it like that. Watch this from Glister's POV. Bro, he rolls Kevster. He fucking rolls him. I mean, that is the funniest, most unexpected kill I've ever seen. That is, like, ridiculous. He does hear him, so he knows he's in that corner, right? But he's getting speed boosted and he's jumping and he hits the headshot, then he flashes, so he sees him there. He sees him punch over to the right side to be able to get out of that door, and then he also hears him uppercut. So he doesn't know he's in the corner because Kevster might have moved, but he has some idea that he should check there. And I'm just going to play this in slow motion. I mean, it's like, it's nasty. It's nasty. 0.25. This shit. He jumps out. Oh, hello. Falling. Lucio speed boost. Yeah, no problem. I hit those. And the Shock have won the team fight already. I mean, the whole Gladiators team is set up to drop onto the Shock and get value out of Kevster there, and he just gets deleted. He gets deleted. I mean, I want to see that from Kevster's POV. I haven't watched it from his POV yet. Full speed first. He gets fucking rolled. So Kevster is originally hiding here, and then I guess he decides he doesn't want to take the fight there. Wants to take the fight here instead. Dude, if that happened... I'm not a pro, but... if that happens to me, I'm like, what just occurred? That is absurd. It is a drive-by. It's an absolute drive-by. This is at 0.25 speed. He's dead before he can do anything. I thought that was ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. I think Glister had a hell of a series, by the way. His McCree fucking popped when they were playing it on King's Row. It was popping here. His Tracer was dominant on Ilios. And remember that his Tracer is not being supported by an Echo and by a Diva. It's just him and Smurf. And they were still getting huge value. I think Glister had a hell of a game, man. Hell of a game. So yeah, that's pretty crazy. But the Shock do end up winning this map. And the biggest reason that the Shock win this map, or one of the biggest reasons, actually, is that they win this team fight. Because this allows them to set back up on the high ground here and take a lot of time off the clock. If the Gladiators win this fight, they keep the momentum going, and the next team fight happens right before checkpoint B. And again, they can keep setting up, because when you're winning, you can, like, take advanced positions to get ready to drop on the Shock as they're pathing back from spawn. But when you lose, this Gladiators comp is much harder, because now you have to push through the choke points yourself, and it's very difficult to get like Kevster set up in a good position, or Muse set up in a good position to engage, if you're the one that has to path through these tight choke points, rather than being the team that's in control of the map. So part of the reason that Shock won this map was literally just the fact that Glister got that shot and was able to win that team fight. But then also, on top of that, they... Hello. They played very well being able to anticipate what the Gladiators were doing. I'm not going to bother just watching the Gladiators whack their heads against a brick wall over and over again, because this is a little reminiscent of watching them play against Paris in that second half, honestly, where they're attacking and they're trying to find opportunities to enter, but they're finding it very difficult because their comp doesn't really do well at like pushing small spaces. What?
I'm fully aware of how crazy this sounds.
Okay.
It's only 4:30.
You're hungry?
I'm hungry.
Okay. Sure. Why not? You want to order food?
Yeah.
Okay. Okie dokie. Let's do it.
Yeah, you said you wanted Indian and not my cooking.
No. Well, yes, but I do really like your cooking. It's just that I have a craving for Indian food today.
Yeah. I'll learn.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I'm all supportive of that. Learning how to cook curries? Yep.
I should be getting a new pan today.
I am Indian? Nice. Your country has produced phenomenal cuisine.
We're big fans.
Yeah, big fans. Big fans. No cilantro, though. Fuck that herb.
That's incorrect.
No, it's not incorrect. It is, in fact, the most correct. You want the regular?
Yeah. The huge.
The huge.
Thanks, love. Sorry, I know it's really, really early, but like,
It is a little early, but I'm done.
I'm hungry.
No problem. I'm actually getting hungry now thinking about eating it, so...
Yeah. I think that might have been the problem. I was like, I feel a little hungry, and then I was like, oh, he wants Indian food, and then I got starving. Anywho, that was a fun little trip through my brain.
Yes. Okay. It is ordered.
Thank you.
No problemo.
Love you.
Love you. Okay. Where were we up to? The Gladiators attacking, alright? They're finding it pretty difficult to be able to set up. It's very difficult for Kevs to get in a good position. Every time they go forwards and try and take a high ground, they're using abilities. And then they can't hold the high ground against the Shock's comp. So they have to drop back off. And so they don't ever have good position to take team fights. Even off the back of EMPs and stuff. It's just a problem with this comp. It's really good if you keep momentum. It's bad if you lose it. So scenarios like this are where the Gladiators should probably have a backup plan. But they don't. I mean, we could see that in the Paris game completely. They do not have a backup plan. Anyway, I think they pushed the payload forward a little further than this. Yes. So this was another mistake from the Gladiators that I wanted to talk about. So they go for a recon test here with Choyobin just before checkpoint B. So they have Choyobin can play really aggressively because he has his ult to be able to get back into mech, and Violet has his coalescence as well. So the Shock can play really aggro on this to try and get back into the fight. Also, Glister is playing on an off angle. Now, if Gladiators watch this back, I think they would agree that you need to kill Glister immediately. Your win condition here is somewhat similar to on Ilios, where, okay, you want to demech Choyobin, but he's, kite the self-destruct, but you want to find a pick. It's important to get a player advantage rather than just skirmishing on the objective, because the Shock's comp is better at skirmishing on the objective. So I think, with the benefit of hindsight, the game plan for the Gladiators should absolutely be for Kevster, Muse, and Space at the minimum to 3-man dive Glister, and I would argue Birdring should get involved as well, but that depends on where he's actually positioned. He's on the low ground at the moment, but you can probably get up there. You want to destroy Glister, take some of your cooldowns, and even if Shock takes Space on the payload, you are probably then going to be able to utilize this high ground to like drop on them and get a decent engage afterwards. You run the risk of your backline getting overrun, for sure. Skew and Skewed would have to be careful in those scenarios when you abandon them for a while. But if you can kill Glister very quickly and then return to the team fight, I think you have a much better chance of winning this. What actually happens is Space and Birdring go aggressive onto Glister. Kevster does not. He continues to fight with the backline and with Muse, the rest of the Shock, and stopping them getting in. Glister, unfortunately, gives them the business. He flashes and kills Birdring and manages to dodge past the defense matrix. And then Space tries to catch Glister again, and Glister gets the D-mech on Space. So, I think Glister may actually die here. Yeah, to Kevster. And now Kevster has committed all the way back. But at this point, you've wasted too much time. You have got the pick, but now Space is D-mech'd in their backline. Birdring's already died. Like, you haven't committed enough resources to getting Glister when he was positioned here. He's given you the fucking runaround. So at this point now the Shock can just come back in with Sound Barrier, and you don't have enough players alive for the Gladiators. So I think this is one of the occasions where they actually they weren't decisive enough. They have to be more decisive. Wire Trooper, thank you for the 28 months. Thank you. Wouldn't Shu just get run at? Yeah, that's what I'm saying is the risk involved. But I think you can very quickly kill Glister there. And if that's communicated to the rest of the team, Shu was positioned like here. Shu can back off here and start pathing towards here, where he has a Mega, and Skewed can be with him as well. And the Shock are not going to have time to chase them down to here and kill them here before Glister dies. And I think the backline would be able to get out to that position. If you look at where Shock were positioned, they were like here. So I think it's going to be pretty difficult for them to like speed boost engage onto the backline fast enough. It is possible that Shu and Skewed get run over, but I still think it was the correct option to go for that. In this final team fight, Shock do a great job of understanding the threat that's going to come. They've been tracking ults. They know that there's going to be an EMP engage from the Gladiators. So they position themselves thusly. Super is the bait on the payload. Let's have a look. So at the moment they're all very bunched up, right? But now as the Gladiators start to move forwards, they create some distance and space between them. Super with a great flick of his shield to avoid getting hacked there, because that could have been disastrous. Well played. And Super is the bait for the EMP. Glister is also playing on an off angle here, so he can't get EMP'd at the same time as the backline as well. And here it's not really FD God that wants to hide, it's Violet. So Glister gets pressured a little bit, Violet fades over to him and gets some heals out. And there's a lot of space now between everybody. They have, you know, Nero and Violet over here. They have Glister all the way back over there, repositioning himself. Super's bait on the payload, etc., right? So they've just created a huge amount of space, which is not how they would normally position themselves, but they know that there's an EMP coming through. So this is the kind of thing where I'm talking about. You have to adjust your positioning before the fight comes in, not as it happens. So EMP comes out, it catches both the tanks, but that's perfect. That's the bait. That's exactly who the Shock wanted to be EMP'd. Because now they have Torbolt that they pop instantly. They have Coalescence that they pop instantly as well. All of those players up on the high ground did not get EMP'd. And they can just heal everyone up, throw the Coom everywhere, and Glister's on the big flank again, being able to just put in work. There's a Shatter from Super that we caught on the broadcast, Deadeye from the top, and it's simple stuff. So you can see that when the Shock anticipate what's coming, they can position themselves much more effectively to handle the Gladiators. But when they're coming back off respawn, or if they don't understand how fast the Gladiators are going to attack them, then their comp doesn't really work, because they can't get their players into good positions to be defensive against it. So, nice shirt to wear with a green screen. Yeah, I stupidly wore an olive shirt, so that was just dumb, wasn't it? But yeah, so that was impressive from the Shock, I think. Volskaya. Let's take a look at Volskaya. Because this is where ANS was back in again. But also, on this map, there were a couple of instances where it felt like ANS got caught out. It only happened once on Ilios. But I think it happened 2 times, maybe 3, on Volskaya. To give Gladiators the win. But again, when you think about the team compositions that these teams are running here, the Shock have a very defensive comp. They need to play around ANS and give him the opportunity to find picks and then go for counter dives with Smurf and Glister. It's very, very similar comp to the comp that they were running on Ilios, except ANS is going to run Ashe here because the sightlines are better for her. And the Gladiators are just going to play hyper aggressive. They move Kevster away from the Widowmaker. He plays Tracer here. So even though we've talked about the Tracer Sombra comp being slower than an Echo Tracer, for example, it's still faster than Tracer Ashe. So the Gladiators are again going to be the initiators here. So the first thing you'll notice in terms of their macro pathing is that the Gladiators are going to try and take control of this high ground and split up the backline. At the moment, the backline of ANS, Twilight, and Violet are all playing together on a really good position. They can all help each other. ANS has got great sight lines. So, Gladiators need to disrupt this. Trying to get Kevster, Birdring into decent positions. They move themselves forward. I'm not going to comment on it too much, but remember that every single time the Gladiators go aggressive, Smurf and Glister are going to be counter-diving as well, right? So, don't be surprised when you see that. It's exactly the same thing that they were doing on Ilios. They were also fucking great at it on this map too. But that's not what I necessarily want to focus on here. It's the Shock backline. So, here, ANS realizes that they're going to dive the high ground. So instead of reacting, he anticipates it, and he starts moving away to create distance from himself and stop him being a dive target. And he's right. The Gladiators go for the dive on the high ground, and they don't find ANS, the squishy long-range hit scan player. ANS is able to continue doing off-angle damage from this high ground. And so the Gladiators, they don't really find their option here. Choyobin is hacked, but still, Violet, Twilight, they're able to play pretty well. Smurf actually decides to peel this time instead of going for the counter dive with Glister. And yeah, this is very effective. The problem, though, is that now the Shock don't realize that Gladiators are set up for another dive onto ANS. So they realize that ANS is repositioned. Birdring feeding them this information, again, because he's got full vision across the map because he's invisible. And Kevster, watch how Kevster paths. He's going to go all the way around here, up top. And the Shock do not realize this. The Shock have no idea that ANS is about to be another target. ANS doesn't reposition. Violet and Twilight don't reposition. Choyobin doesn't reposition. Nobody anticipates that Gladiators are about to dive instantly back onto ANS. They also don't realize that Muse is not playing this corner anymore. Muse runs around the back. They push away Glister. And now Kevster and Muse are in a really good position to dive onto ANS. And ANS has no assistance. Violet and Twilight are still miles away. They also have a big fucking wall in their way, so they can't even land heals on him particularly. Choyobin's miles away, can't peel for him either. And ANS, I think, believes he's just getting harassed by a Tracer. I don't think he thinks he's getting hard dived, because he goes for the Dynamite to try and push Kevster away here instead of trying to reposition and, like, run. Muse gets a free dive off here because Violet has not repositioned for a whip shot. Choyobin has not repositioned to try and boop him. There's just nothing stopping Muse and Kevster. And they get onto ANS, and they're able to kill him. Now, the peel does come through late, and ANS would have survived this, except that Shu nano boosts Muse. So Violet is doing his best, trying to heal ANS here. Violet, if you look from his POV, actually, he doesn't have a heal off cooldown. He has already given a heal to ANS, by the way, but he only had one heal available. He's just about to get his other heal, and I think he would have got up to his other heal had Muse not been given this nano boost and killed ANS. I think Violet probably gets the heal. Maybe they're able to save ANS. But at the end of the day, you can't play the game on such fine margins. The problem is that they didn't anticipate this dive coming in early enough to get those rotations to be able to help people. Glister and Smurf are going for a counter dive here as well. The counter dive, just to watch it for a moment, is still really fucking good. Like, Glister is popping. They melt the backline. But it's just not enough when your backline and your damage output is so far gone. So, I mean, I'm still impressed with what Glister does here. But in this scenario as well, yeah, actually, maybe we should talk about this too. So now the backline, so Violet and Twilight have rotated around to try and heal ANS, right? They get dived on a bit. Good whip shot from Violet. Denies Muse being able to kill them. Choyobin is there with a bit of peel as well. And now this backline with Smurf dead and ANS dead, they need to reposition themselves. And so they're going to go back through here. They're going to try and help Glister. And then they're going to refight the point. But Violet goes to try and help kill Birdring instead of heal Twilight. And it's, again, they just don't realize that Muse, Space, and Kevster are going to be on them as they go through this doorway. Choyobin goes for a boop. Good boop to deny Muse. Twilight hits the nade on himself. This is all good. But Violet isn't there. And so Kevster blinks, again, past the people he's diving to create a sandwich of him and Muse with the shock backline in the middle. And Choyobin, I think, runs out of his defense matrix, but he also just booster himself. He uses his boosters too much and he ends up falling. So he can't help Twilight, and Violet isn't there because he's trying to shield bash Birdring. And so now Twilight dies as well. And so the backline for the shock has just been minced by these dives from the Gladiators because they're not realizing the timings of when they're going to come through. So, yeah, they're just not ready for them. They're not set up. So I think this is like really, I don't know, comms issue maybe, slow brain coming out from some of their players. From Violet, that seems pretty understandable to me that he would want to try and secure this kill on Birdring and leave Twilight with Choyobin. And Choyobin does a decent job of being able to peel. They just don't have enough people in position. Now, Glister is still fucking popping off, by the way. He kills Birdring, kills Muse. He's already killed Shu and Skewed in this fight. But it's not enough when your entire backline has died. And you have the spawn advantage. So yeah, what was I going to say?
Zen wasn't supposed to flank. They
I can't
would have
remember.
Given him footsteps.
Oh yeah, this is another scenario where they try to recontest and ANS gets focused. So this is going to be a recontest attempt. ANS gets a bit cheeky with some shots down here. And again, Kevster blinks past ANS, which is really important here. The fact that Kevster keeps blinking past the people that he's trying to punish. Because if they run away, if ANS tries to run back here, he has to go through Kevster. And if ANS runs away this way, which he does, ANS runs away by using his coach gun down the stairs. Well, now he's into the loving embrace of Muse. And so ANS has just fucked himself there. It also forces out a bad Bob. This Bob just runs straight into the ocean. Usain Bolt kind of shit going on. And in the meantime, you've got some... so in the meantime of like ANS getting pressured down like this, Smurf tries to go in with the nano to re-engage as well. But it just gets destroyed. Look at this. The whip shot here from Skewed into the sleep dart from Shu. That's nasty. That's really well played by the Gladiators backline to be able to completely deal with this pressure. Skewed's Brig is really fucking good. Very good. And it's not that Smurf is bad by any means. It's just absolutely getting outplayed. And also, that's one of the rare instances that we had in the match. One of like 2 or 3 where ANS misplays and ends up getting caught out. I mean, that's the third that we've seen so far. I think there might be more. Actually, there are definitely more times. So I guess they're not that rare after all.
Objective lost. New defense point Objective B.
Okay. So now what we see, I want to point checkpoint B out, right? I'm going to run it in a bit of fairly quickly. We'll run it at normal speed here just for a moment. So here you see the Gladiators. They're going to push through. They try and take the point. Violet uses his rally, pushes forward, counter rally. Rally allows them to be able to survive the EMP engage, even though Glista dies. And the Shock maintain control over this area of the map. This area of the map, very crucial to maintain control of as the defenders. Your respawners can path through there. You have good positions for your backline. If you don't control that, you are pretty fucked. In this meta anyway. Normally this area of the map is also pretty important to control, but it doesn't seem to be as important in this meta. So yeah, this doesn't end up being as effective of a fight. Smurf's Primal here is absolutely god tier. I think Jonathan did a breakdown of this on the desk, this team fight, but I didn't find it that compelling. It's just insane individual play by Smurf, I think. But okay, let's take a look at the next team fight that the Gladiators go for. Notice that the Shock are playing very defensively here. Just, I don't even want to say very defensively. Very standard. Choyobin and Violet playing here to get information. Smurfs either playing here or sometimes playing down here or down here looking for engages. Ants on the sight line. Twilight posted up here and then he drops down to here to contest the objective. These are all very, very common positions. And the reason I'm pointing those out is because Gladiators' positioning on defense was not common. So I'm just kind of putting it in your brains what the norm is. Choyobin is just scouting, looking for bird rings, spamming everywhere. Smurf goes for an engage with the Nana Boost. Again, skewed with a great whip shot. Stops Smurf from getting any value whatsoever. Smurf jumps up to high ground, but he has to just give it up immediately. Even ends up getting hacked. And now this opens an opportunity for Gladiators to go in. They know that Smurf is hacked. They have space. They know that the Shock are backing off. So now they can go in. So Muse jumps in. It's a boot from Choyobin. I think there might have been a whip shot attempt in there as well. I'm not sure. But the boot from Choyobin is crucial, right? Like, you need to be able to deny this monkey from getting onto this bridge, because then your backline is in danger. But if you deny the monkey, then good things happen. So now Muse is isolated all on his own. On the low ground, bionaded, destroyed. No threat. No threat whatsoever. And the Shock end up winning this battle because Muse couldn't get a good engage. So both Winstons end up getting denied there. And it resets back. Smurf didn't get value. Muse didn't get value. Back to the same position. 2:40 on the clock. So I want to look at this team fight though, because this one the Gladiators do find success with Muse. So comparing that to what happened in the previous team fight, Violet pushes forward here and tries to whip shot. I don't really know why he tries to whip shot, but now this really crucial cooldown is not available to deny Muse. And they also, right before this, sorry, let's back it up so that I can talk completely about what happened here, because there's a bit of a brig diff occurring right now. People will like to use their whip shot to just proc inspire generally, but if you're waiting for a Winston to engage, I think it's pretty important that you save whip shot in some circumstances. It does not have the longest of cooldowns, but it's pretty important. So let's think about the things that can deny Muse. We saw Choyobin deny Muse with boosters, and we also see Violet often positioned here to be able to deny Muse with a whip shot, right? So, oh, he was at 98%. He's just looking for his rally. That makes sense. That makes sense. So Choyobin is up on the high ground here. Skewed whip shots Choyobin. And he goes down to the low ground. So now Choyobin, if he wants to get back on the high ground, is going to have to use his boosters. Right? Which are therefore not usable to deny Muse. Violet moves over and whip shots Like you said, probably to generate his rally, because he was at 98%. So now there are no defensive tools available to deny Muse. They don't have Whip Shot, and they don't have the Boop, because Choyobin is on the low ground, and is not going to be in position to deny the Winston when he engages. And as soon as Violet uses that Whip Shot, this might be a coincidence, but it seems like the Gladiators wanted to capitalize on that, because they instantly went afterwards. We're watching it in 0.25 speed, but if you watch it in real time, it's like almost immediately after Violet uses the Whip Shot and they've already knocked Choyobin into the low ground, they just go. And this dive from Muse, there's nothing to deal with it. No Whip Shot available. Choyobin doesn't even realize what's happening. He's on the low ground. He doesn't even see Muse's up there. There's no way he would be able to get to it anyway. And Muse lands like a sack of fucking potatoes on the backline of the San Francisco Shock. And now Violet, the rally that he was able to get up, it's useless. Muse is on top of him with a nano boost, and Kevster, his Tracer blinked around the side. Your Brig is dead, your rally is gone, Twilight is going to follow, and this entire team fight is now lost. And to me, the biggest thing that I noticed when I was watching this team fight is that they don't have those two defensive cooldowns. They don't have the Whip Shot, and they don't have the Boop. And I think that's what the Gladiators noticed as well. It might have just been a coincidence. Maybe the teams aren't, like, working around such small margins like that, but it feels to me like that was the case. So I thought that was a really cool setup. Like, just tiny cooldowns that people really don't think about. But they opened the door for Gladiators to get off a very clean engagement there. That's a flawless if you're playing Valorant. Yo, Toogie Boogie, Wire Trooper, thank you very much for the resub. 69 months from Toogie Boogie. That's the nice number.
0 to 2. Switching sides. Initiating match.
So I thought that was a really cool team fight. I am winning, Space. I'm winning. Let me skip through this. Dead time in the middle.
Ready for battle.
The Shock end up winning point A fairly comfortably here.
2, 1. Attackers incoming.
I can't exactly remember how. Oh, yeah, I do remember now. It's Shu. Smurf does like a fake dive on the high ground and then just lands on top of Shu's head. Look at this. I actually had a question about this. Do you think this is deliberate from Smurf? That he, like, fails his jump? Because Smurf jumps up, and Shu is clearly trying to go to the low ground to reconnect with Skewed and Space to dodge the dive. Because they've already seen that Glister is behind, right? So Smurf and Glister are setting up for a dive on Shu on the high ground. But Smurf, I think, halfway through his jump, deliberately, like, misses it or bounces off the wall or some shit so that he lands on Shu for the extra damage. And he just crunches him. Like, with Glister as well. I don't know. I think it's intentional, but I'm not sure. I don't play Winston at a high enough level to know whether that kind of shit is, like, something you would do on the fly. But it looks intentional to me. Like, the Shock not only were set up for a good dive with Glister and Smurf there, but they actually adapted very quickly once Shu tried to pivot out of it. Intentional? Fine. I mean, that's cool. You think Skewed is a better Brig than Alarm? I haven't seen Alarm play Brig in a long time. But I think they're pretty close. I mean, I haven't watched Alarm's VODs recently, but Skewed's Brig is fantastic. Watch the POV? Why? What, of Smurf? I mean, I don't think that's going to tell you. It doesn't tell you his button inputs. I don't know. That doesn't tell me anything watching this POV, honestly. But I think that's deliberate. I think that's a read from Smurf. I just wasn't sure about it. Anyway. What's most interesting about this map is the Gladiators' defense on point B. Their defense on point A, it just got ruined, but... take a look at this shit. I mean, you guys will remember it if you watch the map, but they play so aggressively on defense. So aggressively. This first fight, not so much. Because they have to repel Shock's aggression. Actually, did they play aggressive in the first
Sideshow
fight? No, I don't
aims
think they
to
did.
cure world hunger.
So this first team fight, the Shock go in. ANS is playing Widowmaker, by the way, which I found to be very strange. Because you're playing against a Tracer and a Sombra. Like, what the hell do you think? Like, what space do you think you're going to have? And Kevster's Tracer was very, very good in this scenario as well. Darth Moon 123, thank you for the new sub. Thank you. By subbing, do I get extra stream FPS? Is my FPS dying on my stream? No one was telling me. So yeah, here we go. Gladiators go for an aggressive defense with the EMP here. I was pointing out Shock's normal positioning on defense. You know, Choyobin, Violet, Twilight holding here, Smurf is around here, ANS on the back, like all the way at the back bridge. This is not a usual defense. It died when you were explaining the shoe dive? Ah, right, okay. This is not a usual defense. This is very, very aggressive, right? These players are holding really far forward. Space is constantly playing for information. You have Shu and Skewed on this forward high ground. For Shock, anytime you spot their backline being positioned up here, you've got to know that it's an aggressive defense. But the problem is, if you only see Space here or here, you don't actually know. Because Space could play there and then just back off, and they might be faking a forward aggressive defense. Or they might have committed to it, and their backline might be hiding behind here or whatever, you know? Like, behind here. So you don't... Unless you see the backline, who are the only people who are going to be revealing themselves, you don't know that it's going to be an aggressive defense.
If Zen wasn't supposed to flank...
So here they go for an aggro defense with the EMP. So, Skewed is trying to bash Smurf there and get him off him. But the rest of the team is not going to try and peel Smurf and Glister away. Smurf and Glister, again, this duo that was doing so well against the Gladiators. But the rest of the Gladiators are going to go aggressive on this EMP. And they lose this team fight. The Gladiators lose this. But they take the team fight so far out that they're able to respawn by the time the Shock get to the objective. So kind of watch how this shit plays out. It's wild. They're able to go so aggro here. They're in a 4v6, by the way. They've already lost Skewed and Birdring early on, because ANS hits the headshot on Birdring, and Smurf kills Skewed with the dive, with the help of Glister as well. They're going to lose Twilight here, Shu here as well. But because they're playing so aggressively... See, they're like trying to find picks all over the place here. They've killed Twilight at least, so there's no Ana available. They're losing the objective at the same time. Right? Smurf and Glister have had a very successful counter dive. They killed both of the players in the back line, and they were able to get onto the objective. Unfortunately, Muse did kill ANS, but I was going to say ANS and Twilight have died. So this is now Shock have 4 players alive, but they're not together. They have Smurf and Glister, and then they have Choi and Violet. And Choi and Violet are miles away, like super disconnected from the rest of them. Not through any fault of their own, just because that's how the team was playing. So Violet's coming back to the team fight. Choyobin is dealing with Muse, and now Choi is going to come back to the team fight as well. But Shock aren't going to win this engagement, because they only have 3 players here against now 5 respawners for the Gladiators. So they gave a tick, sure, but that was even when they lost the team fight terribly, their aggressive defense allowed them to be able to still defend. In theory, you could only lose a team fight 3 times, right? Because you had to give up a tick each time to Smurf and Glister, but some of the times you're going to win those aggressive team fights, and they did end up winning a lot of them. But anyway, the respawners come in. Nano Boost is good. They're able to clean up. Kevster just destroying the backline as well. And this is just kind of desperate from the Shock. They don't necessarily have an in to this fight. They should be happy with the ticks that they got, but there's no way of making this better. And at this point, okay, let's have a look. This is not
Zen
an aggressive
wasn't
defense.
supposed to flank. They would have
But
given him
to the
footsteps.
shock, it looks pretty similar. If you're looking at the shock here as they come off the respawn, they see space up at the top. They don't know where the others are. Kevster normally stays hidden. Birdring is invisible. Muse is staying hidden. If Skewed and Shu are hiding here or hiding here, then it could be another aggressive defense. And so this makes it really difficult for the shock to be able to read where they should be positioning themselves. Should they be positioning defensively, or should they just be taking this space and scaling easily for free? As it turns out, this was not an aggressive defense, and so the shock are able to move forwards. But like, there's some trepidation here from ANS. He's getting, they're trying to play for information before they commit to the team fight. So it's whittling some time away from the shock and making them a little more cautious. Shock go for another team fight here, using their rally. EMP comes out into the back, and ANS is absolutely destroyed. If you want to watch this from ANS's POV to see whether like you made a mistake or something, we can do that. I mean, I think he's anticipating staying alive a little more than that, honestly. You could argue Choyobin not there fast enough with the defense matrix. You could argue ANS should be positioned further back like this, ready to anticipate a dive or something, but the guy just gets massacred. He gets fucking massacred. Because Gladiators are going to do that. I don't know, man. I think the problem for the shock is just that they're not, again, they're not like expecting that dive to come in. And so they're not set up to receive it. They think the rally's probably just going to save them, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, the Gladiators hold on, and from now on, all of the defensive fights are very, very aggressive. So they're going to be diving and taking team fights here at this truck. So, let's have a look. Oh, sorry. No, the next engagement is actually quasi-aggressive. So again, Space is taking information. They can see Muse kind of jumping around on the objective, so they know that they can take all of this space for free. The backline feels pretty confident here for the shock. They move in, and the shock's idea for pathing here is that they're going to work their way through up towards the higher ground, and they're going to be able to get good engages from there. They want to deny this area of the map and push it away from the Gladiators. And that's going to give them options to be able to maybe push ANS on the high ground, maybe play ANS on the high ground up here. It's going to make it much more defensible for the shock. The problem is that the Gladiators don't allow them to get into this. They fight them here again. This, again, the thing that Spilo loves talking about, kill boxes. This area, I mean, I've drawn it terribly, actually, but like, actually, let's just go and take a look at where they take the fight. The actual area that the Gladiators take the fight is here. They take the fight right here as they're pathing through to take the high ground. They don't let them get into the defensible situation of that high ground. They fight them as they're rotating, which is obviously a lot better. And what the Gladiators were doing exceptionally well in this game. And it catches the shock off guard once again. It's a Diva Bomb engage, actually. So this first engage that comes through gets whip shot away. So good play by Violet. And then they decide, no, we really, really want to fight this. So instead, they go for a Diva Bomb engage with Space.
Nerf this.
So Space bombs. Muse and Kevster jumping in, trying to assassinate Twilight. There's been a Bionade inside the health pack room as well that catches both of the DPS that are trying to hide from the bomb. So the bomb is setting up easy Bionades. The bomb is creating predictable positioning for Twilight that's very easy to punish as well. You're putting pressure on them as you Diva Bomb them, so they can't do stuff like Twilight just hiding from it, or Twilight using the Violet's shield or anything, you know. Violet survives with the shield. Choyobin manages to, well, get demeched, but he has the self-destruct if he wanted to stay active. And as the backline tries to push through to see if they can get onto vulnerable players like Skewed or Shu, Skewed bashes them, or maybe even, I mean, Space is pretty vulnerable when he's in the Pilot Diva form. Skewed bashes ANS, and they just delete ANS again. They sleep him, punish him. Destroyed. And they've taken such a fast, aggressive fight, and the Shock are left just reeling. And now Violet's going to die as well up top here to Kevster and Muse. Very aggressive, taking the fight in very good positions on the map. So, okay, now we're going to see these aggressive defenses. So we can see by using the outlines that they're set up for an aggressive defense. From the Shock's point of view, the only tell that you can identify is that you see Skewed's shield and Shu is shooting. So again, the back line tells you whether or not it's an aggressive defense. So at this point, the Shock need to be ready for it. Like, they have to be positioned to bait a dive out of the Gladiators and then deal with it. So let's see what they do. ANS was thinking about working his way up the staircase there to get good positioning for when the dive comes through. He ends up not going for that. Smurf jumps up. They bait the dive, and look, these guys are already moving backwards as the dive comes out. So clearly that was a bait play from the Shock, right? They're pushing their tanks forwards, creating a lot of space between their front line and their back line, which makes it difficult for the Gladiators to execute this dive. The problem is that Birdring is like always going to be in good position because he's playing Sombra. He can just be invisible the whole time and just be behind you. But anyway, the roll backwards. Violet probably should have been positioned a little further backwards as well. ANS gets Nano. Flash immediately kills Birdring too. And so, okay, the Shock actually have a decent plan of how they want to deal with this one. The Shock go for a counterattack too, with Smurf and Glister going for another good dive. All of this is good. All of this is successful. And the Gladiators are forced to back off. The problem is that the Shock, because they're forced to take a team fight here, they're still having to take another team fight once they get to Volskaya B. So even if Gladiators lose that team fight, they're still in a good position. Because now it just goes back to very similar positions. Now, the thing that I did want to point out is how fucking good Smurf is. Smurf jumps in here as Shu and Skewed are backing off. Look how perfectly he boops Shu. His landing impact boops Shu forwards and isolates Shu as a target. I think that's spectacularly good by Smurf. And now Shu can't path to safe positions like out here or out here. And now Shu is just getting forced further and further forwards. Look how annoying Shu's position is here because Smurf's dive was incredible. The Shu sleep on the high noon was good too. Yeah, let's go and watch it. Let's have a look.
Watching your back.
Did he already do it? No. I mean, it was pretty good. It's a high noon, so he's not moving that much. I'm more impressed by Smurf's landing impact, honestly. But yeah, it was pretty good. But it is, yeah, I mean, it's still good. Not trying to undersell it. It's a great sleep. And it means that ANS is just positioned at the backline for forever. And Smurf, I mean, Smurf does a great job here of being able to get into the backline, try and fight Skewed. Skewed bashes away to safety. Great use of that tool. Shu, though, the fact that Smurf juggled Shu forwards means that they're now down their Ana, and they've zoned away the Brig as well. So Gladiators are completely without their healers in the middle of this fight. But the backline for the Shock can never really get in. I mean, ANS is just under giga pressure all the time. And Twilight's grown 3 feet, but he still can't do too much himself. Like the pressure on the Shock backline, they're just never set up properly. Twilight's getting juggled all over the place. ANS is getting juggled too. Kevster is constantly harassing them as well. There's damage happening onto Twilight. EMP comes down onto ANS and Twilight as well. They're just never being able to get set up. They're getting harassed constantly by both tanks and Kevster and the EMP. And what eventually turns this fight is the EMP into the Diva Bomb. EMP up, Diva Bomb comes down, and ANS and Twilight because they've never been able to get... They've never been in control of their own positioning. They've been booped, they've been juggled, they've been harassed by tracers, and it just means that this EMP bomb gets big value. And the Gladiators, they're not trying to win clean team fights. They're trying to make it scrappy and get 2 team fights out of Volskaya B. One out here by the truck and one back here. And as long as they can find individual advantages from Muse and Kevster or from Birdring in space, then they can turn them with the spawn advantage. Yo, Hoyds, thank you for the 15 months. Nice job casting with the dynamic partners. It was very challenging, actually, to start doing play-by-play after literally 5 years of not doing play-by-play. So, I think my play-by-play was very bad when I was doing the game with Matt, and I think it got a little better when I was doing the games with Jonathan and Custer, but it still wasn't that good. Alright, 50 seconds left, and they go for another aggressive dive. Again, can you get more stereotypical as the proactive team and the reactive team than trying to take team fights here all the time? The Gladiators are so aggressive, so proactive on defense. So again, from Shock's point of view, the only tell is that Shu and Skewed are up top. But they should know that this is a push. An aggressive defensive push. So what's the game plan? Oh, by the way, Choyobin moved over to Zarya here. I assume to try and peel the dive more effectively. I really don't know why he moved to Zarya in this situation, but I don't think it impacts things either way, to be honest. So what's the game plan? Like I said before, you need to posture like you're going aggressive, force the dive out of the Gladiators, then crush it. It has to be like a decisive crushing of the dive that's going to come out here from Glads. So you can't have your players go too aggressive. Obviously, Smurf and Glister can, because they're going for the counter dive, but these players can't really cross the threshold, the line in the sand. And so as soon as ANS steps inside this room, in my opinion, they've already lost. Because with ANS inside this room, unless he insta-domes Kevster and gives them a player advantage and survives, he's lost them the team fight. I think Zarya is to prevent Smurf from getting whip shot by Skewed. Maybe, but when you consider that you need to defend first, then attack. I mean, Smurf is normally going on counter dives with... I don't think Smurf is getting these bubbles, is basically what I'm saying here. Smurf is not getting these bubbles. Choyobin is going to have to use these bubbles defensively. But as soon as ANS steps his tippy toes into this room, the Shock have lost. Because this aggressive dive from the Gladiators now has isolated an easy target inside a room that no one can help ANS with. So the dive goes into the back line. Violet takes the bubble here. Birdwing's going to pressure him. Kevster waits for the bubble to fall. Gets a pulse bomb. Beautiful pulse bomb. ANS is half HP, but he has managed to escape. Or has he? Nope. He ends up getting killed because his positioning was bad at the beginning of the team fight. I don't know why. They must have known that it was an aggressive defense at this point because they saw Shu and Skewed being positioned like that. Choyobin uses his self-bubble to try and stay alive. Muse gets slept, but Twilight's already died to shots coming out from Shu and like pressure from Birdring and Muse. And at this point, the Shock have just been destroyed. I mean, this was a drubbing, an absolute drubbing on Volskaya. Thank you. Thank you. And now I have my Indian food. So like this was a class map from the Gladiators. Even though they lost, if you looked at the statistics, it would tell you that they lost a lot of these team fights. Because a lot of these aggressive team fights they took, they ended up being down players. The IBM Watson or whatever would tell you that the Gladiators lost more team fights here. But because they forced more team fights, and the Shock were never in a position where they could actually stabilize, they won the map easily. I thought this was very well played by the Gladiators, but also, again, mistakes from the Shock in terms of how they position themselves, in terms of understanding when the Gladiators are going to go aggressive. Right? Shock are normally a team that do very well in fast-paced environments. And on this map, they just couldn't handle it. And on Ilios. And people are going to say, ANS is the problem. They shouldn't be playing ANS. They lost both the maps where ANS was in. ANS is not playing that badly. He did get caught out a couple of times for sure. But I don't think ANS is the problem. I think it's just running the McCree or the Ashe makes you become the defender, the defensive team. Even if you're on attack, you know? You are the team that has to react if you're playing McCree or Ashe. You're the team that has to peel. And it just feels like the Shock are not that great at that at the moment. So, I'd be more of a fan of them not playing ANS because of the team comps. Not because of ANS, though. I'm down to go to bat for ANS. I think he still played fine in these matches. But he was never set up in a position to have space because the Gladiators were being so aggressive against them. And the Shock couldn't figure out how to deal with it. Maybe it's just bad being the reactive team on this meta. It definitely could be. It definitely could be. It might be... Hey, I would argue it's normally better being the proactive team no matter the meta. In GOATs, better to be aggressive and be the initiators. In this meta, better to be the initiators. What the fuck are the metas? The Dallas Fuel, all season long, always the initiators. To me, when you look at the history of Overwatch, most metas, it's better to attack than to defend. Because it's so much harder to peel. You have to know what the other team is going to do before they do it. And if they're playing that fast, you have to be playing even faster, even though you're defending. That's fucking wild. You know? Okay, this was the wild boop. This was sick, man. So, I think I was talking about this on King's Row, but essentially every player from the Gladiators has a CC ability, be it soft or hard CC. So, Muse has a boop. When he lands, he boops people. Space has a boop. When he goes through people, he boops them back. Mirror has punch, uppercut, seismic slam, all different forms of CC. And Moth also has a boop. The only players that don't are Birdring and Shu, obviously. But 4 players out of 6 all have boops, and the way they combine them together for this play is just gorgeous. It's just absolutely gorgeous. So, first of all, the Gladiators are going to go very aggressively here. They scout a little bit. They see that they're playing against a Rhine comp. They see that they're pathing across the bridge. Immediately,
Routing power to forward shield.
Space is going to charge forwards. Moth, speeding. Oh, I mean, he used speed out of spawn. He's not literally amping speed, but he's got it on speed, you know? Mirror going for the punch. Muse going for the jump. And this all pushes the Shock back. They can't go forwards against this. They have to back up because they're looking to peel. Their comp is defensive. So the Gladiators are taking space here, away from the Shock. So Space boops back Choyobin. Muse boops back Super a little bit. Mirror boops back Super again. And then uppercuts him. And in all of this time, Moth has come over the top to go for the big 4-man boop. And I mean, it could have been 5 as well, because Nero nearly went off with the uppercut too. He gets 3 kills here, but he does boop 4. It's just that FD God is able to survive, and Nero doesn't quite go off the side. But what a lovely play. Again, just another kind of set play from the Gladiators, and they roll the Shock with it. It's absurd. They're so good at being able to take space away from the Shock and then punish them for it. It's wild. Okay, so you got to think about that as well and say, all right, well, next time we play against the Shock, next time we play against Gladiators, we'll go through White Room then. If you go through here with Shock's comp, you're giving Gladiators all of this space, and Mirror gets free punch targets here, which is difficult to deal with. That's actually quite difficult. So, The Shock would much rather try and have a fight over this area of the map, rather than deliberately confine themselves coming out of a tiny choke point and give all of the point control to the Gladiators, where Mirror can kind of go ham with the Doom. So, there's not an easy answer to this. The other part to this as well, though, is that people will hype this up as being like, wow, what a big play from Moth, but it required the whole team to be part of it, right? Like, Moth wouldn't go for this unless his whole team was setting him up for it. It's just a really cool set play. And yeah, he gets like 40% ult charge off it as well. Wild.
Hello. Hello there.
The objective is now active.
Okay, so this time is Shock. They path towards White Room. They set up. Shock's comp is generally better in small confined areas, and it's better in the neutral a lot of the time. Gladiator's comp is good with ult cycling, or if they get hacks off. Or punches, but... in this team fight, Super going for a pin backwards. Just kind of chilling. They wait out the initial abilities from the Gladiators. And now they can push forward. Because Gladiator's comp is all about ability usage. They need the leap, the boosters, the punch to be useful. Shock's comp, they're not reliant on abilities. Nero doesn't give a fuck, he's just shooting. Glister doesn't give a fuck, he's just shooting. Same for Super. So, after they wait out that initial pressure cycle, they can move forwards. And Space ends up dying, Mirror ends up dying. And Shock nicely play around the Gladiators and are able to take the point. Space got a remake kill on Violet? I didn't notice that happened. So, this is the only time in the game, honestly, outside of like maybe one team fight you could argue on Ilios, that Shock are proactive. As soon as the Gladiators jump in, Shock just shatter them. I just like, I'm done with your bullshit. Yeah, he's like, okay, Muse just jumped above me. I'm gonna get off a 3-man shatter. Which is just huge value from Super. And I like that they're being proactive there. Like, okay, I guess you could kind of argue that they're being reactive because they're waiting for the Gladiators to initiate, but you saw them set up, like, aggressively because they know that they need to take value out of that. They can't just kind of sit back and turtle, you know? It's just good play from the Shock. I'm not exactly sure about this ult from Nero, but I think, again, he's just trying to disrupt the Gladiators as they're trying to take a team fight. So as soon as the Gladiators move forwards again, Nero just screams and cooms everywhere. Like, the Gladiators are clearly setting up for a fight, right? And Nero just throws his Tor Bolt all over the place. So, this buys more time. Obviously, the Gladiators don't quite want to initiate into the Torb ultimate, so... I don't think it's a misclick, though. I think it's just a little early. I think they were probably hoping the Gladiators would use abilities, and then Nero would use it kind of, you know, just to react, like, perfectly as the Gladiators are pushing. But it still gives them some extra time on the clock. And it gives them more time to be able to, like, find Bird Ring, push him out, that kind of stuff. Because they know there's going to be an EMP engage. Now, for this EMP engage, they set themselves up really nicely, actually. It's pretty similar to Junkertown. They have Violet hide, where he can jump above this. He's going to be able to jump up and heal and Immortality Field Super. Glister can dodge it. Super's the bait. Choyobin hides this time because he has an ultimate that he can use to peel. And FD God is going to hide as well. Also, Nero is also hiding, but he's in a really good position where he can just dip out afterwards and get a fight. They don't end up winning this fight. The Gladiators still win because the Coalescence is too strong. But it's still good setup from the Shock. I think that they have a very solid game plan here of how to deal with the EMP, which we can go through. So, EMP comes out, Glister dodges it, immediately FD God replies with his ult, Violet jumps up to throw out Immortality, well, actually to heal at the beginning, but he can throw out Immortality Field if he wants. And Choyobin instantly ultimates as well to try and zone the Gladiators from having any kind of follow-up. So, Moth is going to respond with Beat that just saves him in time, which is pretty fucking clutch. But Super gets punched. And so now he's incredibly weak. Actually, does he get punched into the... oh, no, he's EMP'd, right? So his shield doesn't drop from the punch. His shield drops from the EMP. Does he get hit by the self-destruct? I'm not sure. It looks like he does, because all his shields disappear. He must do, right? Oh, no, wait, there's no self-destruct. What the fuck am I talking about? It's Choyobin's self-destruct. Dude, I'm dumb. I'm capping. No, they're just doing a shit ton of damage to Super. So he gets punched, he gets cold. Immortality field gets placed here, but Super ends up walking out of it and also getting kind of juggled out of it as well. I think Violet really wanted to put the immortality field a little deeper here, but Super ends up like walking out of LOS. This pillar blocks LOS of it. And Space and Mirror are trying to boop him out there anyway with the uppercut and with the boosters. So Super ends up dying here. Unfortunate, honestly. If Super survives inside the immortality field and gets healed up by Violet, this team fight could have gone very differently. This is why I say that. I think the setup from the Shock was good. It was just that final tiny little portion of the execution didn't quite work. And good work from Mirror and Space to be able to like jostle him out of line of sight of the immortality field. Now, the thing is here, the Shock get up to maybe like 99%. I'm not even sure. Maybe it's like 80% or something. But they delay for so long right now. So I'm going to play the rest of the team fight in 2x speed. And I don't want you to watch the fight. I want you to watch Birdring and Shu's ultimate charge. Because they've just used EMP Cole, right? Just watch Birdring and Shu. Shu's at 30%. Birdring's fighting Choyobin. He's at 30%. Shu's at 50% now. Birdring's up to 60% to another EMP because he just farmed Choyobin. So, by the time they actually flip the objective, the Shock have got it up to 90%. Yeah. But the Gladiators are 70% of the way to another EMP Cole. And now with the Gladiators in control of the map, they're favored. So, I don't really know. I don't have a solution, but this is a big problem for the Shock. Because by fighting, they advanced their own objective, but they also created their own demise. Because now they're just going to lose to EMP Cole in the next. Yeah, Moth got a shit ton of ult charge as well, yeah. So, if we hop on board with Birdring, he just gets his EMP before the fight. He uses Nero as an ult battery. So now Birdring's at 90%. And okay, it is pretty clutch. Like, Shu and Birdring only just get up to their ults in time. But that's the reason that the Shock lose this fight. Is because they're pushing into another EMP call. Like, look, Birdring just got his EMP right now. And Shu's at 80%. Shoots a healing orb, 90%. When the fight actually happens, when the EMP goes out, he doesn't quite have his ult. But he just gets it in time. Does a little bit of damage, gets up to it, instantly pops Cole, heals everyone up, and just beasts them. Lister gets instigated, Super dies as well, so much healing. There were a couple of players on the Gladiators that were going to die there if that Cole didn't get popped. And so they've just... Yeah, like, I don't even really know what to say here. I'm not sure there's anything the Shock could have done differently or better, but by taking that team fight, they lost the game. Oh yeah, it's a great EMP from Birdring as well, but like, allowing them to get another EMP Coalescence for the next team fight. The Gladiators have only won 3 team fights at this point. The first one off the back of the boop. The second one from an EMP Coalescence. And now the third one from another EMP Coalescence. in back-to-back fights, which is kind of wild. Also, in this final engagement, Moth's ultimate becomes really important because they push past the Amp Matrix with it. Also, FD God has a bit of a beef in this final team fight as well, which I think is that the first mistake we've spotted from FD, honestly. Okay, so Amp Matrix, again, the Shock feel like they want to be taking fights around here, but the Gladiators push past it, utilizing Moth's ultimate. And they also, I think Space sends a Diva Bomb into the backline as well at some point here. Yeah, maybe it's, actually, it's after harassing them, I guess. But yeah, this Immortality Field is thrown down here, and it's not really that useful. It's only Super and Choyobin that have the ability to play inside of it. I guess Glister kind of does as well. Nero's on a flank in the middle of all of this too. The flanking Torbjorn. I don't fucking know about that. FD God pops his beat to try and deal with Space's ultimate, but then FD God runs into the ult. I guess he kind of gets booped by Muse, but FD God both pops his ultimate too early and then runs into the bomb to die when he has full shields. So that is a mistake. But also, I'm not really sure how much this backline would have stayed alive anyway, because they're getting attacked by Shu and Muse. That is the first feed God moment, though, in the whole series. There have been way more mistakes from the other people. I mean, Moth literally hit one of those earlier on. Anyway, yeah. So, Shock can now dot of a backline, and so they lose. They just, even though it feels like they're winning, they just can't stay alive for long enough. And their team's been scattered to the four winds. FD God was trying to touch the objective there. Couldn't quite get there in time. Ended up flipping. Anyway, so yeah, that's the first round. Let's skip forwards.
Score 1. Ready.
This last round, very, very different. Well, not exactly different. Let me explain. This is the first time that Muse has played Reinhardt in the whole series. So that in itself is very different. But the Gladiators still played hyper aggro compared to the Shock. And they had some gorgeous set plays as well. So let's take a look at some of them. They have an incredibly aggressive first fight. So both teams arrive. And what we're going to want to look at here as well is that the Gladiators are pathing instantly to the objective. Mirror is not even thinking about fighting out here. He's a Doomfist. He wants to fight inside the point. They go to the point, and the Shock are going to scout and go back to spawn and change up a few things. I think Violet ends up going to Batiste, and they run Mei Sim here. I don't like the Mei. I'm not exactly sure why the Shock want to run Mei against teams that are really fast and mobile. I guess the Gladiators comp isn't that mobile anymore, but when you're talking about Mirror on Doom, it's still very mobile. We'll talk about it later anyway, the Mei pick, but whatever. The Gladiators now have control of the objective. The Shock do not. And now comes one of the most delightful and aggressive set plays I've ever seen. They're going to wait for Shock to move forwards. And whose perspective should we watch this from? Perhaps Birdring's. If we kind of look over here. So Birdring is watching. I'm going to make this slow for everybody so that we can follow it at home. The Shock are moving forwards. Mirror has reconnected with everybody. And a lot of the times, if the Gladiators weren't crazed, aggressive, you would just take some kind of fight at this choke point. Very boring. Use your Symmetra. See if you can put damage onto Super's shield. And then once they walk through the doors, you see if you can get a punch kill like this or like this. The Gladiators say, yawn, I'm not going for that. And so what they go for here is, the idea is, let me see if I can get a top-down view of everything. Okay, this is a good top-down view, I think. So, Birdring is setting up a teleporter. The idea with this teleporter is that Birdring and Mirror are going to go through it. So Birdring and Mirror are going to go through the teleporter, and this allows Birdring a lot of space to be able to get into the backline and do a shit ton of damage. And it allows Mirror to... What the plan is for Mirror to go through the teleporter with his Seismic Slam so that he immediately comes out of it and slams the backline. And that stops the San Francisco Shock from being able to retreat. They're not able to retreat anymore if the Doomfist is Seismic Slamming their backline. In the meantime, while that's happening, Muse is going to come around the corner and pin really aggressively into there, and Space is going to fly through as well, all being speed boosted, of course, by Moth. They're going to go for a speed boosted crunch, right, where their DPS go through the teleporter to the backline, both providing CC and damage, and then also they go for Muse pinning just aggressively there as well. This plan does not work perfectly. If we watch first what goes wrong, now that I've explained the plan, Mirror doesn't take the teleporter. So Birdring goes through, and if you watch from Mirror's point of view, he is supposed to, I presume, press F here or whatever his teleport key is, and then Seismic Slam. What he actually does is just Seismic Slam the floor in front. But you can see what he was intending to do. He was trying to go through the teleporter, immediately turn around, and Seismic Slam. And he, like, queued the buttons up in his head, right? And that Seismic Slam here would have been synced up perfectly with Muse going aggressive, Space going aggressive, Moth speed boosting forwards, Shoes jumping over the top to get involved as well. But now Mirror is just Seismic Slamming over here, which is so sad. But the idea was good. And here's my question to the people in the chat. And I asked the other casters this, but we couldn't come to a conclusion, which is... Here's my question. Does this Mei wall block the teleporter? Because I don't think it does, but I also don't understand how the interaction works. So I'm sure one of you nerds in chat might know better than me. Because if you take a look right here, he's trying to, like, slam and teleport, right? Like, he's trying to back off and then slam, teleport through. But this wall... Now, the wall does definitely boop him forward, so I think the wall is the reason why he misses the teleport. But does this wall block you using the teleport anyway? I don't think it does, but I'm not sure. I think it just boops him. I think it just boops him forwards. But if it doesn't, then why does Nero even bother walling this? Because the wall looks like it was designed to be on top of the TP. Maybe Nero intended to wall the other side so that people wouldn't have line of sight to the teleport to activate it. If he still has the teleport thing on his UI, he can use it. Yeah, he did still have the teleport thing on his UI. But anyway, the wall boop stops Mirror from actually using the teleporter, but this entire set play would have been gorgeous. Can you imagine that? He comes out of this with, like, big damage Seismic Slam. He gets the extra distance for even more damage on the Seismic Slam, like even more height. So there's more damage on it. He would be paralyzing FD God and Glister. He'd be able to uppercut them as well. These guys would be fucked. This is such a great set play. But it still works. So if we take a look at what actually happens, Muse comes around the corner. He's going to be able to go for the pin. Again, Super has no clue that Muse is going to be speed boosted around the corner pinning him. So Super is just, like, in his own little world here, just trying to break the teleporter, I assume. Because he does not think the push is going to be this quick. But they still get the major portion of the plan in action, right? They still have their DPS doing damage from behind. Muse gets off this free pin because no one is there to be able to stop him. Violet responds very well with this immortality field that keeps Glister alive. But these players have no space with which to operate. Glister has not an inch of free space to move in. Moth is going to be able to take down this, I think it's Moth anyway, that takes down this immortality field, and then Glister is going to be able to die. And Nero, in the meantime, while all of this is happening as well, just has also no space and no impact. How does a Mei get value in such a fast fight? It's just, I mean, all he can do is be a freeze bot and just try and frees up space, I guess, and help the rest of his team. Meanwhile, Muse is doing giga damage. One swing of his Reinhardt hammer, and he's fucking destroying them. He's got everybody all grouped up. Glister, in fact, even goes through his own teleport to just try and get away for a moment, because he knows he's going to die to Muse. Meanwhile, laser beams in the backline, too, from Birdring. They actually do a decent job of trying to push Birdring away. Remember that normally Mirror would be going through this teleport and creating even more space for Birdring, so he couldn't get pressured. You'd have to focus on Mirror. But Mirror's back in the fight anyway, so who gives a fuck? Gets an uppercut on Glister, which is what he was intended to do for a long time anyway. Much better Immortality Field from Shu, because they had way more space with which to play. Look at how much space Shu has compared to the space that Violet has to play inside. This is just a gorgeous set play. Absolutely lovely. Again, Gladiators taking all the initiative, booming the Shock. These kind of plays are so good. Man, I fucking love them. I fucking love them. My little analyst brain tingling from this game. The second team fight is also crazy aggressive. So the Shock are coming back here. And this time they're going to go for a punch shatter. Muse has shatter. Mirror has punch. So that's what they're going to set up for. Let's take a look. Poor Super is going to get absolutely fucking dominated. And people are going to say it's an MTD. So, Amp Matrix goes down for both teams. But Gladiators are going to push aggressively again through this doorway. Which makes which makes Violet's Amp Matrix useless. And it means that throughout all of this, Shu can keep shooting at them through his Matrix. So, everybody on Shock is going to be still getting shot at through an Amp Matrix. Everybody on Gladiators has kited it because they've gone around the side. How many times has Violet put down an Amp Matrix that the Gladiators just push past? I mean, it's got to be like every single one at this point. Surely. So here you go. Super with his shield up. Punch exactly at the same time as the shatter. Violet does a good job of preemptively putting down an Immortality Field because he knows bad times are ahead. Shatter comes down. Super actually not and doesn't end up affected by it, but 4 players on his team do. And that's just such a gorgeous set play. It reminds me of the King's Row play where Shu was just running forwards with the Bionade because they just have so much confidence in their synergy to be able to get plays like that off every single time. It's just bread and butter shit for the Gladiators. But this fight is so good. There's 4 players knocked over. They're all playing within line of sight of Shu, who has Immortality Field down. Nero is the only player that's trying to apply any pressure. On Mei, by the way, again, what the fuck does Nero do on the Mei here? He's just, I guess, trying to stop Birdring from getting value, but it's nothing, really. So now Shu is just blistering them through this Amp Matrix, just battering Super in his back. He can also put down an Immortality Field if it's ever required, and Gladiators have just won another easy team fight by being so proactive and aggressive and clinical with their execution. Very good. Very good. Onche9555 and Ketu42, thank you very much for the resubs. I'll get to your messages in a moment. But anyway, yeah. God tier play. God tier play. And there's only one more team fight in the entire round. It's just so fucking long. I want to show you this from Nero's perspective. Not because Nero played it badly, although I do think that there was some communication issues that make Nero look especially lost in this final team fight, but also just to point out how useless he is on Mei. Sorry, I should refine that. How useless Mei is right here. I'm not saying Nero on Mei played it badly. It's just that the Mei is doing nothing. So teamfight comes out. I'll show you the third person first of all. So teamfight comes out. They're clearly trying to take this really aggressively. You can see Mirror's positioning here. You can tell if you're watching from a third person. The Shock can't really tell. So big uppercut engage. Again, trying to just gain Gladiators all of this space for free because Shocker CC'd by the uppercut. This gives Birdring a ton of space, puts a ton of pressure on Super. They force out the sound barrier. Good sound barrier though. And now Nero is going to use his Blizzard. The Blizzard is used aggressively because they assume that the Gladiators are backing up. It's a pretty good Blizzard. It ends up freezing Birdring, Muse. I think it might even get Shu as well. So this Blizzard is is pretty decent. It's pretty decent. But Mira is tearing up their backline. He's already uppercut Super and made sure that Super is not having a fun time. Then he ults Glister. Then he's CCing Choyobin so that Choyobin can't follow up on any of this shit. Then he goes and deals with the backline, and Mira takes Violet and distracts him. Then Violet ends up dying to Mira here as well. In this scenario, though, it's still a 3v4 for the Gladiators, right? They have Space, they have Moth, and they have Mira alive. Those are the only players available. And so I think in Nero's head, he's like, well, fuck, we've won, right? We're just going to path to the objective. Well, let's go to the point. We've got this shit. So he starts kind of dealing with the turrets and walking to the point. And in the meantime, the Gladiators have decided to take this team fight with the sound barrier. Moth has popped his sound barrier, and they've still got Mirror and Space hardcore pressuring Super and Choyobin. And Nero's just like a little lost lamb. Choyobin's not much better in the midst of all of this team fight as well, if you want to go back and watch from his perspective too. But they're just lost from this aggression. By the time Nero gets in, what is he doing? Freezing Space? Trying to get the D-Mech? They're pushing Super. They've got Mirror on the objective. Space is back inside his mech with the self-destruct. And the rest of the spawners are here, man. They're here. And these players, you've just got a random Choyobin and an FD god on the objective. And now this is like a 5v2 on the point. The Shock are not keeping up with the pace at all. Especially when I was watching it, my focus was drawn to Nero and Choyobin because they're important. Their positioning and how they path with the team and everything is really important. The comms must have been a fucking disaster in those kind of moments. Because the Shock have no idea what's going on. They don't control the pace of this game from the beginning to the end. Even the maps they won. The only map where they looked like the better team, in my opinion, was Junkertown. But they did win King's Row. But for the majority of King's Row, Gladiators were still the better team. It's just that for overtime, Shock made the right adjustments. But, bro, it's crazy. So that game gave me a lot of faith in the Gladiators. A lot of faith. And then when you watch them try to run the same comps, against Paris at the end of Route 66. Alright, the Gladiators Paris game. They lost this game attacking point C of Route 66 and attacking point B of Anubis. All areas where they are getting reset. They don't have position for their DPS players. And they don't have like control of the map. They're having to push and funnel their way through tight choke points. They also lost the game on Nepal, right? But I think where they really lost it was letting these two get out of their grasp. And then by the time they got to game 5, they were fucking mentally boomed. But the end of Route 66 and point B attack of Anubis was dreadful. It was dreadful. But the reason it was dreadful is because the Gladiators didn't control the pace. They didn't have enough of the map that was theirs. If you think about the end of Route 66, you have to get into the warehouse, you have to set your players up, and then you have to dive. They couldn't do that, and they just kept trying it over and over and over again. So, really, the Gladiators, in my opinion, are still a very good team. They just need a plan B and a plan C for when plan A doesn't work.